Months passed in a haze of warmth, battle, and passion. Lying lazily beneath the soft rays of the afternoon sun, Valeries propped herself up on one elbow, her silver hair cascading over Asher's chest. Her golden eyes glinted thoughtfully as she asked, "Now that you've reached the pinnacle of power, what will you do next?" Asher stretched lazily, his body radiating quiet strength.
"Return home," he said simply.
Valeries raised an eyebrow, curiosity flashing across her face.
"Home," she echoed, tilting her head. Asher chuckled.
"I suppose it's strange to you. I'm not from this world. I fell through a spatial rift, and ended up here." Valeries smiled knowingly. "That explains why your aura never quite belonged. I've always sensed you were foreign to this realm." She leaned closer, her gaze playful. "Were you planning to leave me behind?" Asher laughed, reaching up to run his fingers through her silky hair.
"Not at all.
In fact, I intend to bring my family here. This world is far stronger and safer than the one I came from." Valeries nodded thoughtfully, resting her chin on his chest.
"Makes sense.
If your original world's peak is barely at the level of a second realm limit, it would be child's play compared to the might of this place."
"Exactly," Asher agreed.
"My homeworld had its powerful figures, but next to this world, it's nothing more than a forgotten backwater."
Valeries smirked.
"Then why go back at all?
Nostalgia? Or unfinished business?"
Asher exhaled slowly, his gaze distant.
"Both.
My family is still there. I won't be at peace until I know they're safe. Once I bring them here, then I'll be free." Valeries tapped his chest teasingly. "You realize that over there, you'll be a god among mortals. You could rule entire continents if you wanted." Asher shrugged with a small grin. "Power without purpose is hollow. But if anyone threatens what's mine, they'll learn exactly why I'm called the Prime Dragon now." Valeries laughed, her golden eyes gleaming with amusement and excitement.
"Heh.
"Wherever you go, chaos follows. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Consider me part of the expedition. Besides," she added, nuzzling against him, "I wouldn't mind meeting these in-laws of yours." "You will," Asher promised, his voice low and resolute.
"But first,
I'm not finished ascending yet."
Valeries blinked. "What do you mean?"
Asher's smirk deepened. "I intend to claim the title of Dragon God, and not just for myself, but for you as well." Valeries straightened, her golden eyes wide with shock, and barely restrained excitement. "You're serious? You intend to fuse the 9 ancient dragon bloodlines?" "Exactly," Asher said. "I already have 5. The remaining 4 are within my grasp. Once I fuse them, we will ascend together." Valeries laughed low in her throat, a rich, wild sound. "You're insane, and I love it. But fusing all 9? Even ancient legends spoke of the impossibility of such a thing." "Then watch me rewrite the legends," Asher said. Without hesitation, he absorbed the remaining 4 dragon cores. Power flooded his body, raw, unfiltered, and merciless. The fusion process began. Asher's body trembled violently, unable to contain the sheer might flooding through him. The skies darkened, the earth quaked, and the very air around him crackled with chaotic energy. A brilliant explosion of radiance burst outward, lighting up the realm like a newborn sun. When the light faded, he was transformed. The birth of the true dragon god. Asher now towered above the world, a being of pure divinity. His humanoid form was gone, replaced by a colossal dragon covered in shimmering, flawless white scales that glowed with a sacred brilliance. His vast wings stretched across the sky, pure and radiant. Upon his head sat a blood-red crown, adorned with 9 pulsating gems, each one embodying the fused essences of the celestial, nether, void, chronos, sunder, storm, abyss, infernal, and arcane bloodlines. Reality itself bent around him. When Asher released a roar, the heavens and the earth trembled under his will. Valeries watched, breathless. He wasn't just a king of dragons anymore. He had become a primordial dragon god. Stepping forward, Asher flexed his new form, his crimson eyes gleaming with absolute sovereignty. "This," he declared, his voice echoing across realms, "is the true power of the dragon god." Valeries' ascension. Valeries didn't hesitate. She stepped back, her own body glowing with an intense, otherworldly aura as she embraced her hidden bloodline. Her crimson and black scales shimmered and faded, replaced by an ethereal white infused with a dark void glow from within. She had awakened her ultimate form, the legendary white nether ancient dragon. A being whispered of only in myths, so powerful that none who had seen her true form had survived to tell the tale. Now, for the first time, Valeries revealed her true self, and it was magnificent. Asher watched her with pride burning in his chest.
She had accepted him, trusted him, stood with him.
And now, she would ascend beside him. Asher stepped closer, towering above her, his 9 bloodlines pulsing through his crown. Valeries gazed up at him, her instinct screaming to either challenge or submit. But she had made her choice long ago. With a low, resonant growl of absolute trust, she lowered her head, baring her neck, the highest sign of loyalty and devotion in dragonkind. "You've surpassed even my wildest expectations, my mate," she rumbled, voice rich with admiration and excitement. Asher extended a massive glowing claw and brushed it gently along her jawline. "Power is meaningless if I cannot share it with you," he said, his voice soft but fierce.
"Come, Valeries.
Let's ascend together." And with that, he activated eternal creation, weaving the fused powers into her very being, crafting within her a perfect dragon god bloodline, a divine counterpart to his own. The skies rumbled as the 2 dragon gods rose side by side, their combined auras reshaping the very fabric of reality around them. Together, they would rewrite the fate of worlds. With a flick of his claw, Asher summoned the culmination of his divine ambition. In the air before him formed a radiant, pulsing orb of pure primordial energy, a perfect fusion of the 9 ancient dragon bloodlines. Celestial radiance, nether abyss, timeless chronos, devouring void, sundered fury, roaring storm, deep abyss, searing infernal and infinite arcane, all merged into one singularity of overwhelming power. The orb shone so brightly it seemed to carve the sky in two. Valeries stepped forward, her eyes gleaming hungrily. "As expected of my mate," she purred, her voice low and reverent. "To recreate the power of a god itself." Asher smiled, steady and sure. He guided the orb toward her with infinite care. The moment the divine sphere touched her forehead, golden crimson runes erupted across her shimmering white scales. A torrent of transcendent energy flooded through her body, rewriting her very existence from the core of her soul outward. Valeries threw her head back and roared, a cry of power, rebirth, and unshackled glory. Her once immaculate white nether form evolved beyond mortal and divine limits alike. Her scales became a prismatic tapestry of light, refracting every element in existence. Her wings blazed with celestial fire and void energy, forming a living storm of cosmic might. Above her brow, a crown of 9 intertwined gems materialized, a mirror to Asher's own, signifying their equal ascent. When the storm of energy finally faded, Valeries stood there, breathing deeply, feeling the limitless power coursing through her immortal veins. "This," she whispered, wonder and triumph glowing in her crimson eyes. "This is what it means to be truly divine." Asher approached her, his massive radiant form casting a shadow over the landscape. "No longer king and queen," he said, voice rumbling like distant thunder. "We are now dragon gods. Mates. Sovereigns." Valeries chuckled darkly, her fangs flashing. "The strongest to ever exist. A promise beyond worlds." Valeries' voice softened as she added, "I suppose now you're ready to leave, though I doubt it will be easy." Asher's gaze turned toward the endless cosmos. "I know," he said quietly. "Truth is, I don't even know where my world is anymore." All he knew was fragmented. A distant galaxy where 3 major worlds remained, his birthplace, Volarisa, and 2 rival empires of alien races locked in an eternal war, the Nagukar and the Kumtas. And somewhere in that fading galaxy, his family still awaited. Asher clenched his claws. "No matter what, I'll find it." Valeries studied him, her golden eyes thoughtful. "Do you even have a plan?" she teased, sensing his hesitation. Asher laughed lightly. "I can't just say I plan to scan the entire universe with absolute appraisal," he thought inwardly. Instead, he simply said aloud, "I have a method. With it, I can locate my galaxy, and then my world." Valeries narrowed her eyes, but after a moment, she smirked. "Then I'm coming with you," she said simply. "When your ability reaches its limit, you'll need me. And I will help you find your home." Asher's chest warmed with quiet gratitude. "Thank you," he said. Valeries leaned close, her voice almost a growl. "There's no need for thanks between mates." The last farewells. In the days that followed, Asher prepared. He visited Serena, the healer who had once walked beside him through endless battles. Though she longed to accompany him, her heart remained tied to her family. She could not abandon them. Still, Asher refused to leave her vulnerable. He sought out and hunted the god of slaughter, an ancient deity lying in wait, plotting revenge. After slaying the dark god, Asher absorbed his essence, transferring a portion of that divine energy to Serena. The transformation was immediate. Serena ascended into her true transcendent form, becoming a goddess of healing and life, equal to the god of light himself. She was now a force of nature, a protector of her people. Elsewhere, Qua, Valeri's son and heir to the dragon race, had finally come into his own destiny. Entrusting Qua with the future of dragonkind, Asher left him behind to oversee the dragon kingdom. As bearer of the white nether bloodline and son of a primordial dragon queen, Qua's strength already eclipsed most beings on the continent. He would one day become a dragon king in his own right, or perhaps even something greater. The ancient rites of dragon self-reproduction, once used by Valeries to create Qua, might one day pass to him as well. Yet Qua's path would be different. His lineage demanded both might and bonds. And somewhere, perhaps, destiny would bring him a mate worthy of their legacy. Departure into the unknown. Now, standing atop the highest peak of the realm, under the sea of stars, Asher faced the final horizon. Valerie stood beside him, her celestial form radiating with divine might. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice steady. Asher nodded slowly, gazing down at the beautiful world he had once fallen into by accident. A world he had made his own. A world he had protected, loved, and reshaped. "Yes," he said quietly, wings unfurling. Without hesitation, the two mighty dragon gods launched into the sky, their figures slicing through the stratosphere, leaving behind only echoes of their power. Asher cast one final glance back, a farewell to a world he had long called home. "I'll return. Once I brought them back," he vowed silently. And then, together with Valeries, he vanished into the endless cosmos, their divine light piercing the void as they set forth toward the distant galaxy of Volarisa, and the beginning of a journey unlike any other.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
Just as Asher expected, his cheat ability didn't fail him. After scanning the entire universe, he quickly located the galaxy where his home once was. And just he continued to read the data appraisal have given him, it shocked him. What he discovered shocked him. The Kumtas race was now extinct, completely wiped out from existence. Meanwhile, the human race had spread across the galaxy, competing with the Nagukka race for dominance. In just 2 decades of his absence, the entire balance of power had shifted. Volaris, his homeworld, was no longer what it used to be. It is now a realm-tier world from its initial mid-tier world. The galaxy have a structure hierarchy, with worlds categorized from low-tier to mid-tier, then high-tier, and finally, the realm tier, like the world he just left, the highest possible classification a world could attain. Which meant that Volarisa's peak power level had now reached the true transcendent realm as well. Damn, how did it end up like this in just 2 decades? Asher mumbled, his grand plan of coming back, dominating, and wiping out the other 2 races with his supreme overpowered abilities now completely ruined. "I really wanted to feel what it's like to be a bully," he sighed in disappointment. "But, well, I guess I'm still a bully," he thought with a smirk. "Even if my power is only at the true transcendent realm, with my cheats and my new blessings, I'm still stronger than most true transcendents." With that thought, he stretched his body and prepared himself. "Well, I found it," he muttered. Valeries, who had been watching him, tilted her head. "Really? That was fast," she said, sitting down with amusement. Asher chuckled. The problem is, even at full speed in absolute space, it will still take about 1 cosmic year to get there." Valeries narrowed her eyes. 1 cosmic year? "Yeah," Asher nodded. "That means 1,000 light-years of travel." Valeries sighed. "Well then, I hope you have some good entertainment plan, mate." "No, we are not going to travel that long," Asher said firmly. Valeries raised an eyebrow as he added, "There is a high-tier galaxy on the way. We'll level up there first, and with our new power, we should be able to easily traverse the cosmic distance afterward." Asher sighed, a hint of regret in his voice. "It's sad, but I can't do anything about it. If I don't want to waste time traveling for years, or by the time I reach there, my friends from the academy most probably be grandparents at that time," he muttered. "That's a good idea," Valeries admitted, nodding in agreement. "All right, let's go then," Asher declared as he led the way forward. Though he said the distance was nothing, in reality, even by absolute space travel, it would take at least half a light-year to reach the high-tier galaxy. And even though that was fast compared to normal means, it would still take time before they finally arrived. As they soared through the cosmic void, the shimmering galaxies around them flickered like distant lanterns in an infinite sea of darkness. Asher remained deep in thought, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. Valeries, flying beside him in her white dragon goddess form, glanced at him. "You're awfully quiet," she remarked. "I'm just thinking," Asher admitted. "About what comes next." Even if we reach that high-tier galaxy and level up, finding my original world, Volarisa, won't be easy. The galaxy's political structure has changed drastically, and I don't even know where to start searching. Valeries hummed in thought before responding. If humans truly rule the galaxy now, it might be easier than you think. Someone, somewhere, must have records of Volarisa's migration. We just need to find the right source.
Asher smirked.
And if they don't want to talk? She chuckled, her dragon wings spreading majestically. Then we make them talk.
His smirk widened.
I like the way you think. A sudden ripple in space made both of them snap to attention. Ahead of them, a massive energy distortion began to swirl, forming what looked like a rift in space. A cosmic rift?
Asher muttered.
Valeries narrowed her eyes.
No, this is different.
It feels unstable. Before either of them could react, the rift exploded open, and a surge of energy pulled them in. The space around them twisted, and in an instant, they were swallowed by the unknown. Asher sat cross-legged, deep in thought, as they traveled through the cosmic rift tunnel. You're awfully quiet again, Valeries observed, watching him with curiosity. This is my second time in one of these tunnels, Asher replied without opening his eyes. The first time sent me out into your world. Looks like it happened again. Valeries sighed. Well, I guess we can't do anything about it now. She leaned back, allowing herself to relax as they drifted through the unexpected journey. After what felt like an hour, they finally saw light ahead, a sign that they were nearing the end of the tunnel. Moments later, they burst out of the rift and found themselves suspended in mid-air. Below them, a vast ocean stretched endlessly, waves crashing against one another with immense force. We're above an ocean, Asher said, scanning the surroundings. Before Valeries could respond, the water below them began to churn violently, and an enormous creature lunged at them from beneath the waves. A leviathan, its gaping maw large enough to swallow them whole in a single bite. Asher's instincts kicked in immediately, as he easily dodged it.
This thing.
It's at the third transcendent stage, he noted, his eyes narrowing. That means this world is at least a realm-class world. Valeries smirked, her dragon eyes glowing ominously.
So, what do we do? Kill it?
Nah, Asher said, shifting his focus. Let's find a continent first. No need to waste time on a random sea monster. With that, they shot northward, leaving the Leviathan roaring in frustration behind them. Let's find a place to rest first, Asher said. At the very least, we can recover here before continuing our travels. If this place turns out to have a higher cultivation limit, we might even consider staying and growing stronger here. Valeries nodded in agreement.
That makes sense.
No need to rush if this world can help us reach new heights. Valeries nodded in agreement.
That makes sense.
No need to rush if this world can help us reach new heights. With that decision made, they scanned the horizon, looking for land. After a few minutes of flying over the endless ocean, they finally spotted a large continent in the distance. Towering mountains, lush forests, and sprawling cities dotted the landscape. Looks like civilization, Asher remarked. Let's check it out. As they descended toward the nearest city, they remained cautious. This was an unfamiliar world, and they had no idea what kind of powers or rulers awaited them. As they descended toward the port city, they took in the sights. Massive ships with glowing sails floated in the harbor, bustling markets filled with merchants selling exotic goods, and towering buildings with intricate carvings depicting ancient battles and celestial beings. The city was lively, with people of various races moving about. Unlike the places Asher had seen before, this world seemed far more advanced, not just in cultivation but in civilization as well. As they landed just outside the city gates, a pair of armored guards stepped forward. One of them, a burly man with a lion-like mane, raised his spear.
Halt.
Travelers, state your purpose. Asher exchanged a glance with Valeries before replying, We are wanderers looking for a place to rest. This is our first time here. The guard eyed them suspiciously before nodding.
Very well.
But be warned, troublemakers are not welcome in Astrodale. With that, they entered the city. The streets were filled with floating lanterns, hovering platforms, and mystic runes embedded into the stone pathways. It was a mix of cultivation and technology, something Asher had never seen before. They decided to blend in, listening to conversations and observing the people. As they wandered through the Grand Market, Asher overheard a merchant talking about realm rankings and recent conflicts between the major factions. Curious, he approached a stall selling crystal maps and asked the vendor, Can you tell me more about this world? We are new here and want to understand our surroundings. The merchant, a sharp-eyed woman with blue scales along her arms, smirked.
Newcomers, huh?
You must have come from a lower realm. She tapped one of the floating crystals, and a holographic map appeared. This world is part of the Astral Ascendancy, one of the 4 dominant galactic empires. We are currently on the continent of Veltharion. Asher and Valeries listened carefully as the merchant explained the political landscape, cultivation levels, and the powerful figures that ruled this realm. This place might be more interesting than we thought, Valeries murmured.
Asher grinned. Yeah. Let's learn more.
With that, they continued their exploration, gathering information and preparing for whatever lay ahead. The thing that Asher and Valeries quickly learned was that in this world, there is no concept of magic, or rather in this entire universe, magic doesn't exist. This world is entirely a different universe, not just a different galaxy. We're fucked, Asher mumbled as he sat on the edge of the bed, his expression grim. Rather than cultivating like those in the previous worlds he was familiar with, people here used a different method. They didn't condense a core inside their body. Instead, they cultivated something called an astral heart, which functioned similarly to a magical pathways but was vastly different in how it absorbed energy. The realms were similar, but here also, one's talent was determined at birth. If you weren't born with an astral heart, you could never cultivate. Valeries, sitting beside him, looked at the bigger picture. Look at it this way, we just need to grow stronger step by step, and once we reach the peak, we can easily bypass the universe barrier and return to your little world. In fact, we might even return far stronger than before. Asher looked at her with frustration. I endured 2 decades in that other world just to return home. And now, once again, I'm in some foreign world, and the only way to leave is to reach the peak of the universe just to bypass its barriers? What the fuck is happening to me? Valeries chuckled and gently leaned against his back.
Maybe it's fate, she whispered.
The strings of fate around you are strong. Dragons were naturally greedy creatures, but they also had a sharp sense of fate and destiny. Valeries could see it. Asher wasn't just someone with power. He was meant for something greater. Asher sighed, rubbing his temples. He could sense it too, ever since he absorbed the bloodline of the dragon god. Fate was also seen by him too. That's why when he was sucked in that tunnel he didn't react much as his fate flickered and increased, meaning something good was going to happen, yet he is once again away from his goal. But there's a problem, Valeries said. People here cultivate using an astral heart. Meaning, we can't cultivate using our cores. While we can still use our true transcendent realm powers, we won't be able to advance beyond it, no matter how much time we spend here. It's due to the different universal rules. Asher let out a small laugh. That's actually an easy problem to solve, he said confidently. Valeries raised an eyebrow.
Oh?
And how do you plan to do that? Leave that to me. I can easily solve this issue for both of us, he said with a smirk. He had already thought of a simple yet effective plan. By fusing the astral heart of a native from this world with himself, he could extract and integrate its essence. This would allow him to acquire an astral heart of his own. Then, using his infinite fusion ability, he would merge his mana core with the newly obtained astral heart, perfectly synchronizing them. With this fusion, he would be recognized as the true transcendent realm of this universe, allowing him to cultivate here freely from there. And thanks to his astral heart merging with Valeries, she would also be able to cultivate just like him. We just have to kidnap some bandits, killers, or any criminals, Asher said with a smirk. Valeries raised her brow, unsure of what he meant.
Listen, so here's the plan. Asher explained his idea, and as she listened, she nodded.
Well, with your power, I suppose it's possible, she said, acknowledging his abilities.
Asher nodded.
Fortunately, no matter the world, sin exists everywhere, even in this city. He stood by the window, watching the streets below. With his keen senses, he could see the auras of desperation, greed, and unrest surrounding certain individuals. The presence of crime was undeniable, and soon, he would find the perfect target. But why do we need more than one? If we only need 2 hearts, wouldn't that be enough?
Valeries asked. Asher smirked.
The reason is simple. I want to gather as many as possible and then fuse them together, extracting only the highest quality astral hearts for ourselves, he explained. Valeries nodded in understanding. So you plan to refine and merge them, ensuring we get the best possible result?
Exactly, Asher confirmed.
The stronger the foundation, the more powerful our cultivation will be in this universe. I see, so how should we proceed with this? She asked. Using appraisal, Asher had already gathered most of the information about this world. It had a higher limit than expected, though not by much. After the true transcendent realm, this world followed a different ranking system. Saint rank. Great Saint. Saint Lord. Saint King, the peak of this world. These were the 4 additional realms limit to this world, with Saint King standing at the absolute peak. Though from appraisal, he also learned that his fighting power was at the great saint level, despite being only in the true transcendent stage, proof of how powerful he truly was. "We will proceed by registering as mercenaries," he said. Valeries looked at him with curiosity. "Besides, this world is more interesting than I first thought," he added. Through appraisal, he had discovered something rare. This world also cultivated soul energy. Though it wasn't as common as spirit energy, the local term for mana, those who cultivated soul energy did so through a unique variant of the astral heart, known as the soul heart. Only those born with a soul heart could cultivate soul energy, making them exceptionally rare and powerful. "Mercenaries?" Valeries asked.
Yes, Asher nodded.
"In this world, there is no concept of a unified guild like in others. Instead, power is divided among mercenaries, clans, and sections. Those who cultivate independently, without allegiance to any faction, are called free cultivators or mercenaries. And there are mercenary companies here that distribute jobs and missions," he added. Valeries nodded in understanding. "So, our best option is to register as mercenaries, blend in, and gather information while slowly acquiring the resources we need for cultivation."
Exactly, Asher confirmed.
"This way we can earn money, gain local knowledge, and scout for suitable individuals to extract astral and soul hearts from."
Valeries smirked. "Sounds fun. When do we start?"
"As soon as possible," Asher replied. "Let's find the nearest mercenary company and get ourselves registered." With that, the two left their inn and headed towards the heart of the city, where the biggest mercenary hall was located. Asher and Valeries walked through the bustling streets of the port city, taking in the sights and sounds of their new world. The city was filled with a variety of people: warriors in armor, robed mages, and even strange beings with beast-like features. Unlike the world they had left, this one had no concept of magic but instead relied on spirit energy and soul energy for cultivation. After a short walk, they arrived at a large, fortress-like building with a massive iron sign reading, "Azure Fong Mercenary Company." The emblem beneath the name depicted a snarling wolf surrounded by blue flames. "This looks promising," Valeries remarked as she glanced up at the imposing structure. "Let's head inside," Asher said, leading the way. Upon entering, they found themselves in a spacious hall filled with mercenaries of all kinds. Some drinking, others reviewing job postings on a massive board, and a few engaged in heated discussions over missions. A long counter at the back was staffed by clerks managing registrations and payments. Asher approached one of the clerks, a stern-looking woman with short silver hair and sharp blue eyes. "We're here to register as mercenaries," he said calmly. The woman glanced at them, noting their unusual presence. "Names?" she asked, pulling out a thick ledger. "Asher and Valeries," he answered.
She nodded.
"Any combat experience?"
Asher smirked. "Plenty."
The woman raised an eyebrow. "Everyone says that. You'll need to take an evaluation test to determine your rank within our system. Are you ready?" "Of course," Valeries said confidently. "Good," the clerk responded, gesturing toward a nearby door. "Follow me to the evaluation grounds." Asher and Valeries followed the clerk through a side door, entering a large, open-air training ground behind the mercenary guild. The area was surrounded by stone walls, with various training dummies, sparring rings, and weapon racks scattered throughout. Several mercenaries were engaged in duels, some using physical weapons while others manipulated spirit energy in different forms. Standing in the middle of the field was a muscular man with a thick scar running down his left eye. He wore a sleeveless black combat uniform, revealing arms covered in battle scars. His presence alone exuded authority. "This is Captain Ralvek," the clerk introduced. "He oversees all combat evaluations." Ralvek sized them up with a glance, his gaze lingering on Valeries for a moment before shifting to Asher. "You too want to join the Azure Fong Mercenary Company?" "That's right," Asher said with a smirk. Ralvek cracked his neck. "We don't accept weaklings.
"You'll fight me."
If you land a single clean hit, you pass." Valeries chuckled.
"Only one hit? That's all." Ralvek grinned. "Cocky, huh?"
"All right, let's see if you can back it up." He took a step forward, and a powerful aura of spirit energy erupted around him, causing the ground beneath him to crack. Several nearby mercenaries turned to watch, intrigued by the newcomers. "Who's going first?"
Ralvek asked. Asher stepped forward. "I will." Ralvek nodded.
"Draw your weapon." Asher simply raised his hand. "That won't be necessary." Ralvek's eyes narrowed.
"Bold."
In an instant, he dashed forward, his speed leaving an afterimage as he swung his fist toward Asher's face. But just as his punch was about to connect,
Boom!
a shockwave exploded through the arena as Ralvek was sent flying backward, crashing into the stone wall behind him. Dust and debris filled the air as silence fell over the training grounds. The mercenaries watching gasped in disbelief. Ralvek, a veteran at the legendary realm, had been sent flying with a single movement. As the dust settled, Ralvek groaned, pushing himself up from the rubble. He wiped blood from the corner of his mouth and let out a laugh.
Well, damn.
Looks like we've got some real monsters here. The clerk, still shocked, quickly composed herself and cleared her throat.
Asher, you pass. Easily.
Ralvek dusted himself off and turned to Valeries. What about you? You fighting too?
Valeries smirked.
Do I need to? Ralvek sighed, rubbing his temples.
No.
I think I get the picture. The clerk quickly scribbled something in her ledger. Asher and Valeries, you are now officially ranked as gold-tier mercenaries, the highest possible rank upon entry. Congratulations. The crowd of mercenaries murmured among themselves, some in awe, others in fear. These two newcomers were not to be underestimated. Your first mission is the extermination of the Red Pelta Mountain Bandits? Are you sure you want this one? This is your first mission, you guys could choose an easier one, said the receptionist, reading over the request.
Asher shook his head.
You've already seen our power. There's no need for weaker ones.
She sighed before nodding. All right then.
The reward is 1,000 high-quality astral stones, plus anything you find in the bandit den. Aside from any living slaves, everything else is yours. Asher and Valeries nodded in agreement. In this world, astral stones were just another name for mana stones, which contained condensed spirit energy. The liquid form of spirit energy, known as spirit essence, mana essence, was even more valuable for cultivation. These stones came in different qualities based on the amount of spirit essence inside them: low quality, medium quality, high quality, and perfect quality. Asher and Valeries accepted the mission and left the mercenary guild, heading toward the Red Peak Mountains, where the bandit group was said to be hiding. With their strength, this mission was nothing more than a warm-up, but it was a good way to gather resources quickly. These astral stones should be useful for cultivation here, Valeries said, examining one of the lower quality stones they had received as an advance payment.
But it's strange.
This world lacks true magic, yet they have a system similar to mana cultivation.
Yeah, Asher agreed.
But it's not surprising. Every universe has its own set of rules. This one just happens to focus on spirit and soul energy instead of elemental magic. After a few hours of flight, they arrived at the outskirts of the Red Peak Mountains. The terrain was rugged, filled with steep cliffs and dense forests. Asher extended his senses, scanning the area. There, he pointed toward a hidden valley nestled between the mountains. That's where the bandits are hiding. I can sense a few dozen life forces, some stronger than others.
Valeries smirked.
Then let's not waste time. Without hesitation, they descended, preparing to eliminate the bandits and claim their rewards. Asher and Valeries landed quietly on the outskirts of the valley, blending into the shadows of the dense forest. From their vantage point, they could see a well-hidden encampment, wooden barricades, several tents, and a large stone fortress built into the mountain itself. They're more organized than I expected, Valeries remarked. Not just common bandits.
Asher nodded.
Probably a rogue mercenary group or deserters from some army. He focused his senses and smirked. There are about 50 of them, but only a handful are strong. The rest are just cannon fodder. Valeries cracked her knuckles. Do we wipe them out completely, or do you want to interrogate some of them?
Both, Asher said.
I want to see if they have anything valuable, and if any of them have a soul heart, we can use them. Without another word, Asher vanished from sight, using his speed to appear in the middle of the camp. The bandits barely had time to react before he unleashed a wave of pressure, forcing the weaker ones to their knees. Who the hell? One of the stronger bandits shouted, reaching for his weapon, but Valeries appeared behind him, slashing her claws through his throat before he could even finish his sentence. Panic spread through the camp as bandits scrambled to fight back, but they were no match. Asher moved like a phantom, cutting down enemies with ruthless precision. Valeries, in her human form, tore through them effortlessly, her sheer physical strength making her an unstoppable force. Within minutes, most of the bandits lay dead. The few survivors cowered in fear, hands raised in surrender. Now, Asher said, stepping over the bodies. Let's see if any of you are useful. He activated his appraisal ability, scanning the remaining bandits. His eyes showed disappointment when he saw there is no who had soul heart. Tisk, Asher clicked his tongue in annoyance. Not a single one of you is worth anything. The bandits shivered under his gaze, their fear palpable. Some of them were already on the verge of passing out from sheer terror.
Valeri sighed. So, what now?
Kill them all. Asher rubbed his chin thoughtfully.
Not yet.
Even if they don't have soul hearts, they might still be useful in other ways. He turned his gaze to the bandit leader, a burly man with a scar across his face. You. Do you have any information worth sparing your life for?
The man frantically nodded. Why yes. I swear.
There's a hidden auction house in the Black Iron City. They deal in rare cultivation materials, forbidden techniques, and even, he hesitated before continuing, even slaves with rare bloodlines or special talents. Asher's eyes narrowed.
Slaves, huh?
Yes. Some of them might have soul hearts. The nobles and powerful sects buy them to raise as personal disciples or servants, the bandit leader quickly added, sensing Asher's interest. Valeri's crossed her arms. An auction house dealing in rare talents. Sounds like exactly what we need.
Asher smirked. Not bad.
Looks like you just saved your miserable life, temporarily. The bandit leader exhaled in relief, but his relief was short-lived as Asher's fingers suddenly pierced his chest. Wah! The man's eyes widened in shock as his body convulsed. Asher absorbed his spirit energy, draining him dry in seconds. The bandit's corpse fell lifelessly to the ground. The remaining bandits screamed in horror, but Asher simply wiped his hand clean. Relax. I'm not wasting energy on weaklings like you.
He turned to Valeri's.
Looks like our next stop is the Black Iron City.
She grinned.
Finally, something interesting. Anyway, let's first get the astral hearts, Asher said as he reached into each bandit's chest, extracting their crystalline cores. To think humans in this world are naturally born with these, Valeri's mused as she observed the shimmering stones. Asher inspected them carefully before fusing them all into one astral heart, turning into one high-quality astral heart a level lower than perfect quality. I think you should use it. We can always get more for me later, he said, handing her the high-quality astral heart.
She nodded. Fine.
But don't take too long to get yours. I don't like being ahead of you in power for too long.
Asher smirked. Oh?
Afraid I'll get weak. She rolled her eyes but didn't deny it. Holding the astral heart in her palm, she closed her eyes and started the absorption process, letting the heart merge into her body. Asher watched closely. This will be interesting. As Valeri's absorbed the astral heart, her body trembled slightly as a powerful surge of energy coursed through her veins. Her dragonic bloodline resisted at first, but the new energy quickly integrated, forcing her body to adapt. A faint black mist began to seep from her skin. Impurities, remnants of her past cultivation, and excess energies that were no longer compatible with this universe's system. The mist thickened before evaporating completely, leaving her skin looking even more pristine, like polished jade. Then, a sudden shift occurred. Her aura, once at the peak of the true transcendent realm 10th stage, rapidly regressed, falling all the way back to the peak of the first transcendent realm. The loss of power would have been alarming to any other cultivator, but Valeri's remained calm. She clenched her fists and flexed her fingers, feeling the immense density in her body.
Strange, she murmured.
I've lost realm stages, but my body feels much stronger.
Asher grinned.
I expected this. Your previous cultivation was built on a different universal system. Now, your foundation is restructured to match this world's laws, making you far more solid in power. Your physical strength is even beyond what it was before.
But why? She asked.
It's normal this world have higher limit. There is bound to be difference after all, he said. Valeri smirked, flexing her fingers again.
Interesting.
So, by cultivating again under these new rules, I'll eventually become even stronger than before. Exactly, Asher confirmed. Your foundation is now purer, meaning your future breakthroughs will be much more stable. This also proves my theory. This world isn't weaker than ours, just different. Strength here is built differently. Valeri's chuckled, stretching her arms. Good. Then let's hurry up and get your astral heart. I don't like being ahead of you for too long.
Asher smirked.
Let's see how long that lasts. After collecting the remaining valuable items from the bandit camp, Asher and Valeri's made their way back to the mercenary guild to submit their mission report. The journey was uneventful, and within a few hours, they arrived at the bustling city where the guild was located. As they entered the guild hall, the same receptionist from before greeted them with a mixture of surprise and mild amusement.
Back already? That was fast. Asher placed a small sack onto the counter, and when she opened it, her eyes widened. Inside were several insignias belonging to the Red Pelta Mountain Bandits, proof of their extermination. Mission complete, Valeries stated casually. The receptionist exhaled, shaking her head in disbelief. You two really are monsters. She scribbled down the details in her ledger before sliding a heavy pouch toward them. Here's your reward, 1,000 high-quality astral stones as promised. Asher took the pouch and stored it away. Thanks. As they turned to leave, the murmurs of other mercenaries filled the hall. Word of their terrifying strength had already spread, and many were still processing how two newcomers had wiped out a dangerous bandit group in mere hours. Ignoring the stares, Asher and Valeries left the guild, making their way toward their next destination, Black Iron City. Black Iron City. The journey to Black Iron City took several days of travel across rugged landscapes, forests, and rivers. As they neared their destination, the scenery changed. Towering black metal walls loomed ahead, giving the city an imposing presence. The air was thick with the scent of iron and sweat, a clear indication of the dominant power in the region, the Black Iron Sect. Known for their brutal body cultivation techniques, the Black Iron Sect ruled the city with an iron grip. Here, strength dictated status, and only those with formidable physical prowess earned respect. The city's layout reflected its nature: stone-paved streets, towering martial dojos, and training grounds where warriors honed their bodies to unnatural levels of resilience. As they passed through the city gates, Asher and Valeries observed their surroundings. Warriors clad in heavy armor patrolled the streets, while blacksmiths forged weapons using special refining techniques that enhanced their durability and power. The atmosphere here is different, Valeries mused. Everyone is either a cultivator or a warrior.
Asher nodded. Makes sense.
The Black Iron Sect controls everything, and their focus is pure body refinement. Anyone weak would struggle to survive in a place like this. Their destination, however, wasn't the sect's headquarters but a far more discreet location. The hidden auction house rumored to deal in rare cultivation materials, forbidden techniques, and unique individuals with special bloodlines. After gathering some information, they found their way to an unmarked building in one of the city's darker districts. The entrance was heavily guarded, with warriors standing at attention. Their sharp gazes immediately locked onto Asher and Valeries as they approached. One of the guards stepped forward, his muscular frame radiating a strong aura. State your business.
Asher smirked.
We're here for the auction. The guard studied them for a moment before nodding.
Invitation.
Valeries produced a small token they had acquired from the bandit leader before his demise. The guard examined it closely before stepping aside. Welcome to the Black Iron Auction, he said, opening the doors for them. As they stepped inside, the air grew heavy with an ominous energy. The auction house was filled with powerful figures, sect elders, rogue cultivators, and wealthy nobles, all gathered for one reason: to obtain the rarest and most valuable treasures the underground world had to offer. Asher and Valeries exchanged glances. This, Valeries whispered, a glint of excitement in her eyes, might actually be fun.
Asher smirked.
Let's see what they have to offer. And with that, they ventured deeper into the auction house, ready to claim whatever they desired. Inside the Black Iron Auction House. The moment Asher and Valeries stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The walls were lined with intricate black steel engravings, and the dim golden glow of spirit lamps cast long shadows over the elegantly furnished interior. The air was thick with tension and greed. Everyone here was a predator, looking for the next treasure to claim. A well-dressed attendant approached them with a polite yet wary expression. Welcome, esteemed guests. Are you here to participate in the bidding or to sell an item? Bidding, Asher replied smoothly. The attendant nodded, leading them through a lavishly decorated hallway into a massive chamber filled with tiered seating. At the front stood a grand stage covered in protective formations, where items would be displayed safely. The bidders were a diverse mix: nobles draped in luxurious robes, mercenaries clad in battle-worn armor, and hooded figures hiding their identities. Valeries leaned closer to Asher, her voice low. I sense some strong auras here. A few of them might be a challenge if they decide to make things difficult.
Asher smirked.
Let them try. They took their seats near the middle of the hall, a good vantage point without drawing too much attention. Moments later, a sharp chime rang through the room, signaling the start of the auction. An elderly auctioneer, dressed in refined dark robes, stepped onto the stage. His presence alone commanded attention. His cultivation was high, and his sharp eyes scanned the room like a hawk. Welcome, honored guests, he began, his voice carrying a subtle energy that ensured silence. Tonight, we offer only the rarest and most coveted treasures. Let us begin. The first few items were impressive but uninteresting to Asher and Valeries: rare herbs, high-grade weapons, and spirit artifacts. The crowd eagerly bid on them, raising prices to absurd levels, but Asher remained patient. He was here for something more valuable. Then, the auctioneer's tone changed. And now, he announced, something truly extraordinary, an item that many of you have sought after but few have had the fortune to acquire. A captured celestial bloodline holder. A murmur spread through the hall. This was it. A set of armored guards stepped forward, dragging a young woman onto the stage. She was bound in high-grade spirit-sealing chains, her body covered in bruises, but her presence was undeniable. Even in her weakened state, an aura of celestial purity radiated from her, her silver hair shimmering faintly under the stage lights. Asher's eyes narrowed. A celestial bloodline. No wonder they're auctioning her off instead of keeping her. Their sect specializes in body cultivation, but her bloodline is tied to pure energy-based growth. They can't properly utilize her potential. Valeries rested her chin on her palm, watching the girl with interest. Still, she's valuable. If her bloodline is strong, she could be useful. The auctioneer smiled as the crowd's excitement grew. Starting bid, 500 high-quality astral stones. Immediately, hands shot up. 600. 750. 1,000. The price skyrocketed in mere moments. Asher remained still, letting the bids climb higher. He knew the real competition would begin once the weaker bidders dropped out. 1,500. 1,800. A noble from a wealthy sect smirked as he raised his hand. 3,000. His smug gaze swept the room, daring anyone to challenge him. Valeries chuckled. Cocky. Asher raised a single finger. 5,000. A wave of silence washed over the room. Even the auctioneer raised an eyebrow. The noble's face twisted in irritation. 5,500. Asher didn't hesitate. 10,000. Gasps erupted from the audience. The sheer audacity of doubling the bid in an instant sent a clear message: Asher wasn't someone to be trifled with. The noble clenched his teeth but hesitated. The price was now beyond what he was willing to pay. He scowled but eventually backed down. 10,000 going once. The auctioneer glanced around. No other bids. Going twice. Sold. To the honored guest in the black coat. A hush fell over the room as people tried to assess Asher's background. No ordinary cultivator would spend that many astral stones so casually. Valeries smirked. Well, that was fun. Asher leaned back, satisfied. Now, let's see what other treasures they have. With the celestial bloodline holder secured, the auction continued. And Asher had no intention of leaving empty-handed. Asher didn't have to worry about any shortage of astral stones. With his eternal creation talent, he had already produced them in the millions. Right now, he could generate enough to buy an entire world if he wished. Using this ability, he began bidding without hesitation. Unlike others, he didn't need to rely on wealth or resources. He could create them effortlessly. And though he didn't flaunt it, his dragon god bloodline set him apart from everyone in the room. Even celestial bloodlines were rare, but they only had one affinity, light. Asher, however, possessed 9 affinities, each of them immensely powerful and far beyond the norm. These were not ordinary elemental affinities but ones tied to primordial forces, making his very existence something beyond comprehension. And with this overwhelming power backing him, the auction house would soon realize that no one here could outbid him. The auction continued with the slaves coming in with bloodlines, but none had any soul heart, but Asher still bought them all, cause his wife need maids for her. The auction continued, and more individuals were brought onto the stage, each possessing unique and powerful bloodlines. Asher observed with an impassive gaze, waiting for something truly exceptional. A young woman with a phoenix bloodline was presented next. Her crimson eyes glowed faintly, and despite her restraints, there was an undeniable pride in her posture. The crowd erupted into a bidding war, but Asher silenced them with a single call. 15,000 astral stones. No one dared to challenge him. The auctioneer, barely containing his excitement, struck the gavel. One after another, individuals with rare lineages were brought forward, descendants of ancient warriors, offspring of forgotten sects, and even those with mutated bloodlines that held unpredictable potential. Each time, Asher bid decisively, claiming them for himself without hesitation. Valerie smirked, resting her chin on her hand. You're really going all out. My wife needs maids, Asher said casually. Valeries chuckled. Generous. Then, the atmosphere changed. A set of armored guards carried in a small figure, bound in reinforced spirit-sealing chains. Unlike the others, this one barely struggled. His frail form trembled, and his silver hair fell over his face, concealing his expression. The auctioneer cleared his throat. And now we present a rarity among rarities, a child born with a soul heart. The room fell into a stunned silence. A soul heart was an anomaly, a phenomenon that defied logic. Those born with it possessed the ability to cultivate at an unnatural rate, wielding their soul as a weapon and defying even the natural laws of mortality. Some could ascend to divinity, while others became terrors that no force could contain. A noble dressed in golden robes immediately raised a hand. 20,000 astral stones. 30,000. Another voice rang out. 50,000. The bidding skyrocketed in an instant, the room filled with voices competing to claim the child. Valeries watched the commotion with mild interest. You going for this one too? Asher leaned forward, his eyes locked onto the child. He wasn't just bidding for some rare talent, he saw the potential. With proper guidance, this boy could ascend beyond mere mortality, perhaps even rival Asher himself one day. 500,000, Asher said, his voice cutting through the chaos. The entire auction hall fell silent. Even the auctioneer took a moment to process the number. The previous bidders hesitated, unwilling to match such an absurd sum. 500,000 going once, going twice. Sold. A resounding thud of the gavel finalized the deal. The child, still barely reacting, was dragged off the stage to be processed for his new owner. Valeries exhaled through her nose. You just casually spent enough astral stones to buy a small kingdom.
Asher smirked. Worth it.
The auction continued, but by now, everyone in the room had realized one thing. No one could outbid Asher. And by the end of the night, he had acquired more than just rare bloodlines. He had finally secured a way to cultivate his soul as well. Now, he just needed to study the soul heart and recreate it perfectly using his eternal creation ability. But the auction wasn't over yet. After the common items that had been sold up until now, it was time for the 12 most valuable treasures to be revealed. Asher sat back, waiting to see what these final 12 items would be. The auction hall dimmed as the final and most coveted items were about to be revealed. A sense of anticipation filled the air as a woman draped in silver ceremonial robes stepped onto the stage. She was the appraiser, the one who would verify the authenticity and potential of each treasure before the bidding began. Her piercing golden eyes glowed faintly as she raised a slender hand. A soft pulse of energy spread across the stage, activating a massive, rune-covered pedestal. The first item was brought forth. First item, the automaton core of the Forgotten Era. A metal sphere, no larger than a human head, hovered in mid-air, spinning slowly within a containment field. Faint, ancient runes flickered along its surface, and a rhythmic hum echoed through the chamber. Appraiser's analysis. Name, Automaton Core of the Forgotten Era. Type, Artificial Intelligence Construct. Effects, contains remnants of an ancient battle AI, capable of controlling golems and mechanical constructs. Grants vast battlefield coordination abilities. Defect, core is damaged, requires restoration to function at full capacity. The crowd murmured in awe. Items from the Forgotten Era were rare, as most knowledge of that time had been lost to history. Starting bid, 8,000 high-quality astral stones. The moment the automaton core of the Forgotten Era was unveiled, the auction hall buzzed with excitement. Ancient relics from the Forgotten Era were priceless, as the knowledge of that time had mostly vanished, leaving only scattered remnants of unparalleled craftsmanship. The bidding began immediately. 8,000. A sharp voice called out from the left side of the hall. An older man with streaks of silver in his hair, dressed in deep blue martial robes, sat with an air of authority. His aura was steady, his expression one of deep calculation. The insignia on his sleeve marked him as an elder of the Azure Forge sect, a distant but well-respected faction known for their advanced puppetry techniques. 10,000. A younger voice rang out. This time, it came from a confident-looking man clad in silver-lined black robes, his long hair tied back in a simple yet elegant fashion. The emblem of the Starfire Pavilion shone on his chest, a sect notorious for their obsession with forgotten artifacts. His eyes glowed with a sharp intelligence as he smirked at the competition. The Azure Forge elder narrowed his gaze but remained calm. 12,000. Another hand rose. This time, a woman in dark crimson robes, her face partially veiled. The faint presence of mechanical energy around her suggested she was from the Clockwork Dynasty, a sect that specialized in artificial constructs and automaton refinement. 15,000. The Starfire Pavilion's young cultivator exhaled through his nose but raised his bid without hesitation.
20,000.
The bids continued to climb, the three factions refusing to back down.
25,000.
The Azure Forge Elder's voice remained steady, his fingers tapping lightly against his chair's armrest. The woman from the Clockwork Dynasty hesitated for the first time but then raised her hand.
30,000.
A murmur spread through the crowd. This was a high price for something that was still damaged. The young man from Starfire Pavilion frowned slightly but gave a confident smirk.
35,000.
His tone was casual, almost arrogant. The Azure Forge Elder hesitated. His sect was skilled in puppetry, but even they would need decades to properly restore such an advanced artifact. Was it worth it? The Clockwork Dynasty representative clenched her jaw. She had already stretched her budget thin. Restoring the automaton core would take significant resources. Silence filled the room. The auctioneer raised his hand. 35,000 going once. The Azure Forge Elder exhaled and shook his head slightly. He would not waste more resources.
Going twice.
The veiled woman from the Clockwork Dynasty lowered her hand.
Sold.
To the honored guest from Starfire Pavilion. A quiet murmur spread through the hall as the young man leaned back, satisfied. He had obtained the automaton core, but at a steep price. Whether he could actually restore it was another question entirely. Asher watched the exchange with mild amusement. Valeries leaned over slightly.
Not interested. Asher smirked.
I could make a better one if I wanted to.
She chuckled.
Of course you could. With the first item sold, the auction moved on. Next, we present the second treasure of the night. All eyes turned toward the stage as the next item was revealed. Second item, the Twilight Serpent's Venom. A crystalline vial filled with a deep, swirling indigo liquid was placed on the pedestal. Even through the containment field, the venom radiated a suffocating aura. Appraiser's analysis.
Name, Twilight Serpent's Venom. Type, lethal poison.
Effects, one of the deadliest known toxins. Causes instant nerve collapse upon contact and erodes the soul if ingested. Has alchemical applications. Defect, extremely volatile, improper storage may cause spontaneous vaporization. A few assassins in the crowd leaned forward with interest. Starting bid, 12,000 high-quality astral stones. As soon as the Twilight Serpent's venom was revealed, the air in the auction hall grew tense. Even through its protective containment, the vial of swirling indigo liquid exuded a paralyzing aura, making weaker cultivators instinctively shrink back. Poisons of this caliber were incredibly rare. This wasn't some simple alchemist's concoction, it was a natural venom, extracted from the mythical Twilight Serpent, a creature known to reside in the most treacherous abyssal swamps. The auctioneer's voice rang clear. Starting bid, 12,000 high-quality astral stones.
A moment of silence. Then, 15,000.
The first bid came from a shadowy figure seated near the edge of the hall. Their presence was subdued, but their cold, calculating aura revealed them as an assassin. Judging by the snake emblem on their sleeve, they were likely from the Umbral Fong, an infamous organization of killers that specialized in poison arts.
18,000. 18,000.
This time, a man in dark green robe spoke, his voice smooth yet venomous. His jade-colored eyes gleamed with interest as he adjusted the sleeves of his ceremonial outfit. The insignia on his belt belonged to the Emerald Viper Hall, a sect renowned for their mastery of both poison techniques and beast taming. The assassin from the Umbral Fong glanced toward him but said nothing.
The bid continued. 20,000. A cold, feminine voice.
Heads turned toward the speaker, a pale woman dressed in black and gold, sitting elegantly with a goblet of wine in her hand. She had an air of nobility about her, but the gold serpent embroidery on her sleeve revealed her identity. She was from the Golden Fong Society, a reclusive but feared sect that dabbled in forbidden poisons. A murmur rippled through the crowd. 3 different poison factions were competing for the venom. This was getting interesting. The assassin spoke again. 25,000. The Emerald Viper Hall representative smirked, clearly enjoying the game. 30,000. The woman from the Golden Fong Society merely swirled her wine before raising her hand lazily. 35,000. Another murmur spread. This was no small sum, but it was expected. 1 drop of this venom could kill even nascent soul cultivators. For an assassin or poison cultivator, it was a priceless weapon. The Umbral Fong assassin hesitated. This was likely close to their limit. The man from Emerald Viper Hall sighed, shaking his head. He too had reached his spending cap. Seeing no more challengers, the auctioneer smiled. 35,000 going once.
Going twice. 40,000.
The entire hall fell silent. Eyes snapped toward the new bidder, Asher. He sat there casually, resting his chin on his hand, completely unbothered by the reactions around him. Valeries raised an eyebrow, clearly amused.
Oh?
Since when do you care about poison?
Asher smirked. I don't.
But this venom, it might be useful for something else. The woman from the Golden Fong Society turned to look at him for the first time. Her golden eyes studied him carefully. Then, after a moment, she smiled faintly and placed her goblet down.
I concede.
A wave of hushed whispers spread. Who was this man, casually outbidding an entire sect of poison masters? The auctioneer confirmed it.
Sold.
To the honored guest in black. With the Twilight Serpent's venom now in his possession, Asher simply leaned back, unfazed by the stares around him. Valeries chuckled. You just made some poison factions very, very curious about you.
Asher only smirked.
Let them wonder. With that, the auctioneer motioned for the next treasure to be brought forward. And now our third item of the night.
Third item, the Abyssal Ember.
A small black flame hovered within a floating glass orb, pulsating with an eerie, otherworldly glow. The air around it warped subtly, as if reality itself struggled to contain its existence. Unlike ordinary flames, it did not flicker, it burned with an unsettling stillness, exuding a deep, suffocating aura. Appraiser's analysis.
Name, Abyssal Ember. Type, Forbidden Flame.
Effects, capable of devouring both spiritual energy and physical matter, reducing its target to nothingness. Can be used for dark alchemy, weapon forging, and certain destructive cultivation techniques. Defect, extremely difficult to control. Without a proper method to harness it, the flame may consume its wielder instead. As soon as the item was revealed, a noticeable shift spread through the auction hall. The flame wasn't just rare, it was dangerous. Even some of the more experienced cultivators instinctively leaned back, unwilling to get too close to such an unstable force. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Starting bid, 20,000 high-quality astral stones.
A few moments of hesitation followed. Then,
25,000. A deep voice echoed from a bulky man clad in black and silver armor, his arms crossed as he eyed the flame with intense focus. The Warbringer clan's insignia was emblazoned on his chest, a notorious faction of warriors who incorporated fire-based techniques into their brutal combat style. 30,000. This time, a lean, dark-haired man dressed in elegant deep red robes raised his hand. His calm, almost scholarly demeanor didn't match the violent nature of the flame, but his piercing gaze suggested he knew exactly how to use it. He bore the Bloodshade Alchemy Sect's emblem, legendary for creating forbidden elixirs and weapons. The armored warrior sneered. 35,000. The alchemist smiled faintly.
40,000. A few murmurs spread.
Most sects would hesitate before bidding so aggressively on something so unstable. But these two factions clearly knew its value.
50,000.
A third voice entered the fray. This time, it came from a shadowed corner of the hall, where a cloaked figure sat, his aura restrained. His presence was so well hidden that many hadn't even noticed him before. The moment he bid, however, a ripple of tension spread. Asher's eyes flicked to the side. He could tell, this man wasn't normal. The Bloodshade Alchemist furrowed his brow but didn't give up. 55,000. The cloaked figure didn't hesitate.
60,000.
Gasps spread through the room. The Warbringer clan warrior gritted his teeth, clearly weighing his options. Then, with a frustrated exhale, he backed down. The alchemist, however, didn't seem as eager to surrender. 65,000.
A long pause followed.
The cloaked figure remained silent.
Then,
70,000. That was his final offer.
Silence.
The Bloodshade Alchemist sighed. Even for him, that price was too high. The auctioneer raised his hand. 70,000 going once.
Going twice.
Asher raised a finger. 100,000. The entire hall fell silent.
All eyes turned to him.
The cloaked figure tilted his head slightly, as if reassessing Asher. But he did not raise the bid. After a long moment, the auctioneer grinned. 100,000 going once, twice sold. The hushed murmurs were unavoidable. Even among the wealthiest and strongest, 100,000 high-quality astral stones was an absurd price. For a moment, the attention in the room shifted entirely to Asher.
Valeries smirked.
You really have no sense of restraint, do you? Asher chuckled. It's not about the price. It's about showing them that they can't outbid me. The cloaked figure said nothing, but Asher could feel the subtle weight of his gaze lingering for a few seconds before fading away. Valeries raised an eyebrow. Looks like you've caught someone's interest. Asher leaned back. Let him be interested. With the abyssal ember now in his possession, the auctioneer moved forward. Ladies and gentlemen, for our fourth item of the night. Fourth item, the Titan's Heart. A massive crimson crystal, pulsating with slow rhythmic beats, was carried onto the stage by 3 armored guards. Though it had long since stopped being a living organ, its sheer presence radiated an overwhelming pressure, as if a sleeping giant's will still lingered within. Appraiser's analysis. Name, Titan's Heart. Type, primordial relic. Effects. Enhances physical strength exponentially. Can be refined into a cultivation core for body reinforcement techniques. Grants the wielder a trace of Titan's lineage, boosting vitality and endurance. Defect. Requires an extremely powerful body to withstand its energy. Improper fusion can cause spiritual backlash or physical destruction. As soon as the item was displayed, the atmosphere in the hall shifted. The aura emanating from the heart was so heavy that weaker cultivators instinctively clenched their fists, feeling an intense gravitational pull toward the stage. The auctioneer's voice carried a hint of excitement. Starting bid, 50,000 high-quality astral stones. 60,000. The first bid came immediately. The voice belonged to a mountainous man, his muscles bulging beneath his robes. His sect insignia was unmistakable, the Iron Blood Temple, a faction renowned for its brutal body-refining methods. Another voice rang out. 70,000. This time, from a bronze-skinned warrior woman in heavy black armor. She bore the crest of the Thunderforge clan, an elite sect that specialized in warrior cultivation techniques. Their warriors were famous for shattering mountains with their bare fists. 75,000. A younger man in dark red robes, his eyes burning with ambition. He was from the Crimson Vein sect, infamous for their blood-tempering techniques, which allowed them to absorb the essence of ancient creatures to enhance their own bodies. The bidding escalated rapidly. 80,000. Thunderforge. 90,000. Iron Blood Temple. 100,000. Crimson Vein sect. By this point, the hall was buzzing with intensity. The Titan's Heart wasn't just an artifact, it was a stepping stone to ascension. Those who could refine it properly would become monstrous warriors, nearly unkillable in battle. The armored woman from Thunderforge gritted her teeth before raising her hand. 120,000. The Crimson Vein disciple hesitated. That price was too high for him. The Iron Blood Temple cultivator crossed his arms, letting out a deep chuckle. Then, with a booming voice, 150,000. Gasps spread through the hall. At this point, only a handful of people could afford to keep bidding. The woman from Thunderforge clenched her fists. She had come prepared, but not for this level of competition. A moment of hesitation, then she sighed in defeat. It seemed the Iron Blood Temple had won. 150,000 going once. Going twice. 200,000. The hall fell silent. Everyone turned. Asher. Valerie smirked, her silver eyes glinting. You're really enjoying this, aren't you? Asher rested his chin on his palm, completely unfazed by the shocked expressions around him. The Iron Blood Temple cultivator narrowed his eyes. You think a pretty boy like you can handle the Titan's Heart? Asher smirked. That's not your concern. You either bid, or you shut up. The silence that followed was palpable. The Ironblood warrior's muscles tensed, veins bulging as he debated pushing the bid further. But he wasn't a fool. 200,000 was an insane price. Even for him, it would take years to recover such an amount. Finally, with a frustrated grunt, he lowered his hand. The auctioneer smiled brightly. 200,000 going once, twice sold. And just like that, the Titan's Heart was his. Fifth item, the soul-refining lotus. As the next pedestal was unveiled, an eerie silver flower hovered inside a crystal container. Its petals glowed faintly, shifting between shades of blue, violet, and white, while a soft hypnotic hum resonated through the auction hall. Those with weaker souls felt a slight pull, as if their very essence was being drawn toward it. The crowd stirred uneasily. Unlike physical treasures or powerful weapons, this was something far rarer, something that directly influenced the soul itself. Appraiser's analysis. Name: Soul-refining lotus. Type: Soul enhancement relic. Effects: strengthens the soul foundation, increasing spiritual resilience. Aids in healing soul damage or injuries from forbidden techniques. Required material for crafting certain divine soul artifacts. Defect. Requires a stable and strong soul to absorb its essence. Overuse may cause spiritual dissonance, leading to madness or loss of self. The auctioneer let the anticipation build before announcing, starting bid, 80,000 high-quality astral stones. 100,000. The first bid came from an elderly man in silver robes, his eyes gleaming with greed. The insignia on his shoulder identified him as an elder of the Mystic Soul Sect, a faction that specialized in spirit cultivation and soul arts. 120,000. A hooded figure, their aura concealed, but the faint golden glow beneath their cloak hinted at divine energy. Likely a rogue cultivator or someone from a hidden clan. 150,000. This time, a young woman dressed in white and gold, a disciple of the Celestial Spirit Pavilion. Her sect was known for producing the most powerful spirit masters, and it was clear she wanted the lotus for herself. The bids rose swiftly, as soul-enhancing treasures were exceedingly rare. Unlike physical techniques, a cultivator's soul foundation was nearly impossible to strengthen through normal means. 180,000. The Mystic Soul Sect elder was unwilling to back down. His breathing was heavy, his wrinkled fingers clutching his armrest tightly. 200,000. The hooded figure didn't hesitate, raising the bid again. At this point, even the more powerful bidders hesitated. Soul-related artifacts were dangerous. The effects were priceless, but the risks were immense. If the user wasn't prepared, their soul could be damaged permanently. For the past few minutes, Asher had simply watched. Valeries raised an eyebrow. Not interested in this one. He chuckled. On the contrary. With a lazy motion, he raised his hand. 300,000. Silence. The Celestial Spirit Pavilion disciple turned toward him, eyes narrowed. The Mystic Soul Sect elder's jaw tightened. Even the hooded rogue cultivator hesitated. For Asher, however, this was a must-have item. His eternal creation ability allowed him to replicate, but before he could recreate the soul heart, he needed to fully comprehend how powerful soul-enhancing treasures worked. The auctioneer, momentarily stunned by the jump in price, quickly recovered. 300,000 going once, twice. Sold. A sigh of relief from the losing bidders, and an intense wave of curiosity directed at Asher. By this point, even the arrogant young elites in the room began to re-evaluate him. This wasn't just wealth, this was a level of confidence that only someone truly powerful possessed. And the night was far from over. Now for our sixth treasure of the night. The next pedestal was revealed, and the crowd leaned forward once more. Sixth item, the Abyssal Warplate. As the veil over the next pedestal was lifted, a black suit of armor was revealed, floating slightly above the stand. Dark ethereal mist seeped from the joints, and the moment it was unveiled, a heavy killing intent spread across the room. The armor exuded an ancient aura, as if it had once stood on countless battlefields, drinking in the blood of warriors. Some of the weaker cultivators shivered, instinctively wanting to move away. Even powerful bidders narrowed their eyes at the ominous presence of the Abyssal Warplate. Appraiser's analysis. Name, Abyssal Warplate. Type, Cursed Relic Armor. Effects. Grants immense physical defense, resisting both physical and energy-based attacks. Passively absorbs killing intent and battle energy, strengthening the wearer over time. Enhances reaction speed and battle awareness, making the user deadlier in combat. Defect. The armor is sentient and has an insatiable hunger for blood. Prolonged use may cause the wearer's mind to erode, turning them into a battle-thirsty berserker. The auctioneer let the tension settle before raising his hand. Starting bid, 150,000 high-quality astral stones. The bidding war begins. A deep, rumbling voice spoke first. 200,000. The bid came from a hulking warrior with gray skin and fiery red eyes, his muscles barely contained within his ceremonial battle robe. His presence alone made it clear. He was a chieftain of a warrior tribe, and the Abyssal Warplate suited his kind perfectly. 250,000. A grizzled man clad in blood-red armor leaned forward, his gaze sharp. His insignia marked him as a general from the Crimson Thunder Army, an elite mercenary force that specialized in high-risk war campaigns. 275,000. A young man in silver and black robes smirked as he raised his bid. The crest of the Abyssal Blade sect gleamed on his chest, a faction notorious for training ruthless, unrelenting assassins. The numbers continued to climb, each bidder weighing the risk against the potential of wielding such a powerful armor. 350,000. The tribal chieftain's expression darkened. He had the physique to withstand the armor's bloodlust, but the price was reaching dangerous levels. The Abyssal Blade sect disciple clicked his tongue in annoyance, considering whether to raise the bid further. Asher joins the bidding. Just as the auctioneer prepared to finalize the sale. 500,000. Asher's calm voice cut through the murmuring crowd like a blade. Silence. All eyes turned toward him. The tribal chieftain clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with irritation, but he did not raise the bid. The mercenary general muttered something under his breath before leaning back. Even the Abyssal Blade sect disciple hesitated, his hand twitching before he eventually let out a sigh. They had all felt it. That wasn't just wealth, that was dominance. 500,000 going once, twice. Sold. The deal was finalized, and Asher relaxed slightly. Valeries chuckled beside him. Accursed armor? Didn't take you for a berserker. He smirked. I won't be wearing it. I'm going to study it. His eternal creation ability could break apart the warplate structure, remove the curse, and reconstruct it into a perfect form. A set of armor that granted all of its strengths, without the insanity. And that was a weapon worth investing in. The auction continued, but by now, there was an undeniable shift in the hall. Many bidders had stopped looking at Asher as just another rich competitor. Now, they were trying to determine exactly who he was. And now we move on to the 7th item of the night. The next pedestal was revealed, and the room once again fell into silent anticipation. But there are surely many influential figures, Valeries said as he nodded. It's normal, it's as an annual auction, and auction house makes sure there is something that each sect definitely wants. Pour them, you are sweeping all of it for yourself, she laughed as Asher just nodded. As the next veil was lifted, a brilliant golden red feather hovered inside a containment field. It radiated immense heat, making the air shimmer around it. The sheer pressure of its energy caused nearby weak cultivators to sweat instantly, some even stepping back instinctively. Those well-versed in ancient beast lore immediately recognized it. A true phoenix feather. Not the diluted kind left behind by lesser fire spirits or hybrid creatures, but a genuine remnant from a divine phoenix, one of the primordial beasts said to have mastered eternal rebirth. Even Valeries, who had been lounging comfortably, sat up slightly intrigued. Appraiser's analysis. Name, ever-burning phoenix feather. Type, divine beast relic. Effects. Grants immense fire affinity, drastically enhancing flame-based techniques. Contains true phoenix essence, allowing it to aid in powerful rebirth rituals or enhance longevity. Can be refined into a phoenix blood pill, capable of purifying fire cultivators' bloodlines. Defect. Impossible to refine unless one has a high-level fire affinity or a suitable bloodline. Mishandling may trigger a phoenix soul echo, which could summon dangerous attention. A stunned silence filled the room. Phoenix feathers were exceedingly rare. Most vanished into flames upon a phoenix's death. The fact that this one remained intact meant it was an artifact of extreme value. Even those not aligned with fire cultivation understood how priceless it was. The auctioneer cleared his throat before speaking. Starting bid, 500,000 high-quality astral stones. The first bid came instantly. 600,000. The speaker was a woman clad in flowing crimson robes, her body wreathed in gentle flickering flames. A noble of the Scarlet Sun sect, a fire-based clan known for their sunfire cultivation arts. 700,000. A middle-aged man in orange gold armor followed, his voice deep and commanding. His insignia marked him as a high-ranking elder of the Vermilion Flame Pavilion, another prestigious fire cultivation sect. 850,000. A foreign cultivator, his aura sharp and powerful, likely from the Blazing Sands Empire, where the Desert Phoenix tribes resided. The bidding quickly shot past 1 million, as multiple elite factions fought for the relic. Even the Celestial Spirit Pavilion disciple, who had lost the previous bid to Asher, seemed tempted but eventually backed out. Phoenix flames weren't aligned with their arts. 1,500,000. The Scarlet Sun sect woman's voice was sharper now, her desire for the feather evident. The Vermilion Flame Pavilion elder hesitated but countered immediately. 1,750,000. A few rogue bidders tried to keep up, but by 2 million, only 2 contenders remained, the Scarlet Sun sect noblewoman and the Vermilion Flame elder. Throughout the chaos, Asher remained silent, watching. Valeries nudged him. Not interested? He smirked. I was waiting for the right moment. And then. 5 million. His voice cut through the noise like a sword. The entire hall froze. Eyes widened. Murmurs erupted. The Scarlet Sun sect noblewoman turned pale, and the Vermilion Flame elder clenched his fists.
Even the auctioneer looked momentarily stunned. At this point, it wasn't just about the phoenix feather anymore. This was a message. And everyone got the message loud and clear. The Scarlet Sun sect noblewoman hesitated. Her sect was powerful, but they weren't limitless in wealth. The Vermilion Flame Elder gritted his teeth, but after a long pause, he exhaled and sat back down. They knew when to stop. The auctioneer composed himself. 5 million going once, twice. Sold. The hall had barely settled from Asher's bold bid when a sharp voice cut through the murmurs. I demand an explanation. A man in dark robes with silver embroidery stood, his piercing gaze locked onto the auctioneer. His aura was sharp and brimming with confidence, clearly a figure of high status. The crowd turned their attention to him, some recognizing his insignia, the elder of the Twilight Pavilion, a sect notorious for its schemes and shadow dealings. This auction is a farce, he declared, his voice carrying a calculated weight. The auction house is clearly favoring one bidder. Gasps spread through the audience. The accusation was serious. Even the auctioneer's composed expression flickered for a second before he calmly responded. We uphold absolute neutrality in all our dealings. The elder scoffed. Neutrality? That man, he pointed directly at Asher, has been casually throwing out absurd bids with no concern for cost. Either he has limitless wealth, or he is working with the auction house to drive up prices artificially. Whispers filled the hall. Valeries let out a small, amused chuckle, leaning back with amusement. Oh, this is getting good. Meanwhile, Asher remained seated, calm as ever. He didn't even spare the man a glance, simply resting his chin on his hand. The auctioneer's gaze sharpened. Are you questioning the integrity of the Black Iron auction house? His tone was polite, but the underlying threat was clear. The Twilight Pavilion elder hesitated for a split second. But his pride wouldn't let him back down. I am questioning why a supposed outsider has limitless astral stones and is bidding recklessly on every high-value item, he countered. That is not normal. Just as the tension was about to escalate, another figure stood up. A woman in a flowing black and gold robe, one of the main organizers of the Black Iron auction. Enough, she said firmly, her presence immediately demanding respect. We do not tolerate baseless accusations. However, if Lord Asher wishes, he may verify his bid by presenting an equivalent deposit. Her gaze shifted to Asher, her eyes curious yet cautious. At this, Asher finally moved. He sighed lightly before leaning forward and snapping his fingers. A massive wave of pure astral stones materialized in front of him. Not just ordinary ones, each stone radiated a level of purity far beyond what was typically found in the market. The crowd fell silent. Even the Twilight Pavilion elder's face darkened. This wasn't just wealth. This was absolute dominance. Then, Asher spoke, calm but final. Satisfied. The auction hall was dead quiet. The auctioneer nodded immediately. There is no issue with Lord Asher's legitimacy. We shall continue. The Twilight Pavilion elder clenched his jaw but said nothing. He had no counter-argument. He had just embarrassed himself in front of the entire auction hall. Valeries grinned, nudging Asher. That was almost too easy. Asher smirked. It was. And with that, the auction resumed. Of course, with the guy removed from the auction. The black jade box was slowly unsealed, and a wave of eerie silence washed over the auction hall. Inside, nestled on a silk cushion, lay a gem unlike any other. It was pure black, yet within its depths faint, twisting shadows swirled as if something was alive inside. A low hum resonated through the chamber, causing weaker cultivators to feel a chill in their very souls. Appraiser's analysis. Name, Abyssal Soul Gem. Type, Soul Artifact. Effects, contains the lingering will of an abyssal beings. When refined, it grants unparalleled enhancements to soul cultivation, increasing spiritual awareness and resilience. Defect, highly unstable. If improperly handled, the will inside may corrupt the user, leading to soul erosion or complete loss of self. Murmurs erupted immediately. Abyssal artifacts were extremely rare and infamously dangerous. Only cultivators with immense soul strength dared to use them. The auctioneer smiled knowingly. Starting bid, 15 million high-quality astral stones. A sharp intake of breath swept through the hall. This was one of the highest starting bids so far. A hooded figure from the Silent Moon sect raised a hand. 16 million. An elder from the Violet Star Immortal Palace immediately followed. 17 million. Then another bidder joined, a mysterious man in gold and black robes, someone unfamiliar to most but radiating immense power.
20 million. The tension escalated rapidly. The silent moon sect bidder hesitated before raising again. 22 million. But the golden black-robed man chuckled before raising his bid without hesitation. 30 million. Gasps rippled through the room. Even for a soul artifact of this magnitude, such an aggressive bid was shocking. Throughout the intense battle, Asher remained silent. Valeries watched him carefully. Interested? She asked, amusement in her voice. Asher exhaled slowly, his eyes locked onto the swirling shadows within the gem. Interested? More than that. Soul cultivation was one of his few remaining weaknesses. While his eternal creation ability let him forge astral stones and refine treasures, true soul cultivation required something beyond physical material. And now, the perfect catalyst was right in front of him. So, he finally raised his hand. 50 million. Even the golden black-robed man flinched slightly. Some cultivators almost choked on their drinks. Is he insane? Someone whispered. That's not just wealth, that's absolute confidence. The golden black-robed man narrowed his eyes, studying Asher intently. For the first time, he truly acknowledged him as a rival. But he did not raise his bid. The auctioneer glanced around, waiting. No one else dared to challenge. 50 million going once. Twice. Sold. To Lord Asher. And just like that, the abyssal soul gem was his. As the auction continued, the tension barely had time to settle before the next item was revealed. The 9th treasure of the night. A sealed silver box was brought forward, carried by 2 armored cultivators. Even before it was opened, the air itself seemed to vibrate with an overwhelming pressure. The sealed silver box was placed onto the pedestal with great care. A faint golden aura leaked through the edges, shimmering in a way that wasn't just light, it was divine energy. When the auctioneer opened it, the hall was immediately bathed in a radiant glow. Inside, resting on a velvet cushion, was an ancient scroll made of celestial silk. Golden inscriptions flickered across its surface, shifting constantly as if alive. The energy it radiated was so intense that weaker cultivators had to avert their gazes. Appraiser's analysis. Name: Celestial War Scripture. Type: Divine Martial Technique. Effects: a high-tier celestial technique once used by a forgotten war god. Grants mastery over divine combat arts, enhanced battle instincts, and direct refinement of celestial energy. Defect: requires a powerful soul to comprehend. A weak-willed user may suffer spiritual backlash or disintegration upon attempting to learn it. A hush filled the hall. Divine techniques were exceedingly rare. Even the strongest sects only had fragments of scriptures from ancient times. But this was a complete, unbroken scripture. The auctioneer's voice was steady but laced with excitement. Starting bid: 100 million high-quality astral stones. There was no hesitation. The moment the number was announced, bids erupted like wildfire. 110 million. A sect elder from the Radiant Sun Temple immediately raised his hand. 120 million. A young genius from the Divine Flame Clan followed without blinking. 140 million. The mysterious gold and black-robed man from before finally spoke again, his tone calm but sharp. The entire hall trembled under the sheer weight of these numbers. 4 most powerful sects and clans, something like this wasn't just a treasure, it was a legacy-defining artifact. Valeries leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. Now, this is fun, Valeries mused, her eyes gleaming with interest. As the bidding war raged on, many in the hall stole glances at Asher, waiting, anticipating. Would he make a move? After all, he had already shocked the entire auction house with his bold bids earlier. But this time, he remained silent. He didn't raise his hand. He didn't even look interested. Many assumed he was simply waiting for the price to rise further before striking. But the truth was far simpler. Asher had no need for cultivation techniques. For others, a divine scripture like this could serve as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, allowing them to refine their energy and reach heights they never could have imagined. But for Asher, it was redundant. His family's assimilation technique, after being perfected by his system, was superior to any technique in existence. It didn't just enhance cultivation, it absorbed, refined, and perfected any technique he came across. With this ability, he could replicate, modify, and improve any technique to suit his own needs. Even if he acquired the Celestial War Scripture, his system would instantly assimilate it, extract its essence, and integrate it into his already unmatched technique. To put it simply, why buy something he could effortlessly surpass? So, while others fought over the Celestial War Scripture like starving wolves, Asher merely watched. It didn't take long for others to realize his lack of interest. Some were confused. Some were curious. And some, like the gold and black-robed man, felt a deep sense of unease. Because if a technique this powerful wasn't enough to move Asher. The moment the celestial war scripture was sold, a quiet tension settled over the auction hall. Some cultivators exhaled in relief, their shoulders relaxing now that the monstrous bidder had shown no interest in the technique. To them, it was a blessing in disguise. If Asher had entered the fray, no one would have stood a chance. His wealth was as unfathomable as his power. But now, with his silence, the scripture had fallen into another's hands. And yet, not everyone shared in that relief. Many others remained uneasy. Their instinct screamed that something was off. It started with hushed murmurs, quiet at first but quickly spreading like wildfire. How could he ignore it? Even the great sects would fight for a technique of that caliber.
Did he not need it?
Or did he already have something better? Two dominant theories took shape among the more astute cultivators. Cultivation techniques weren't universal. They required specific constitutions, affinities, or bloodline traits to fully unlock their potential. If Asher had no connection to celestial energy, then the celestial war scripture would be useless to him. That would explain why he remained utterly unmoved while others battled fiercely for it. But the second theory. That was the one that sent chills down the spines of those who considered it. What if Asher possessed a technique so profound, so overwhelming, that even a divine scripture paled in comparison? What if he had no reason to bid, because he had already surpassed what the celestial war scripture could offer? This thought was far more terrifying than the first. If true, then his origins, his cultivation, and his sheer potential were beyond anything they could comprehend. And it was this small moment of hesitation, this lingering fear, that caused several high-ranking cultivators to abandon their plans of going after him altogether. As the murmurs around Asher's silence slowly faded, the auctioneer clapped his hands, signaling the next item. The stage lights dimmed, and a pair of armored attendants carefully stepped forward, carrying a long obsidian case adorned with ancient runes. A suffocating killing intent leaked from within, pressing against the souls of every cultivator in the room. A few of the weaker attendees instinctively recoiled, their faces turning pale. Even before it was revealed, they knew, this was no ordinary weapon. The auctioneer smiled knowingly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice laced with excitement, "I present to you, the Abyssfong Reaper." With a flick of his fingers, the obsidian case snapped open, revealing the blade inside. A long curved scythe rested within, a weapon that seemed almost alive. The blade was forged from void steel, a legendary material said to absorb the life force of those it cuts. The entire weapon pulsed with a dark, eerie glow, and faint whispers echoed from within the metal itself, as if the souls of its past victims still lingered. Appraiser's analysis. Name, Abyssfong Reaper. Type, cursed weapon, scythe. Effects. Devours the life force of those it strikes, converting their vitality into strength for the wielder. Can cut through most known defensive formations and spiritual barriers. Gains intelligence over time, forming a connection with its master. Defect. The weapon is sentient and will reject the weak. If the wielder is not strong enough to control it, the blade will consume them instead. A cold hush fell over the crowd. The weight of the weapon's existence alone was enough to make even seasoned warriors hesitate. A cursed blade that devoured life, and chose its own master? This wasn't just a weapon. It was a predator. The auctioneer's voice broke the tense silence. Starting bid, 30,000 high-quality astral stones. Unlike previous items, there was a pause. A weapon like this wasn't something one simply purchased, it was a gamble. Yet, the allure was undeniable. The first bid came from a cloaked figure in the upper seats. His voice was deep, calculated. 35,000. A warrior with scarred arms and a heavy saber leaned forward, his eyes hungry. 40,000. The next was a young heir from the Bloodshade clan, a sect infamous for their assassins. His lips curled into a smirk. 50,000. A battle-hardened elder, his aura filled with death energy, raised his hand. 75,000. The numbers kept climbing. Yet through it all, Asher remained silent. Valeries leaned closer, eyeing him curiously. "Not interested," she whispered. Asher smirked but said nothing. Truthfully, the Abyssfong Reaper was powerful, but he had no use for it. His eternal creation ability allowed him to forge weapons far beyond this scythe's limits. If he wanted, he could create a weapon with the same abilities, without the flaws. This blade was desperate for a master to wield it. Asher had no need for a blade that sought control.
As the price neared 200,000, only two bidders remained, the cloaked figure from the upper seats and the Bloodshade clan heir. The heir scoffed, his confidence unshaken. 250,000. The cloaked figure hesitated. A long silence stretched between them. The heir smirked. Victory was his. But then, a chilling chuckle echoed from the cloaked man's seat. He slowly raised a single finger. 500,000. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The heir's smirk vanished. His jaw clenched, his hand twitching as if struggling to make a decision. But in the end, he sat back down. The auctioneer's voice rang out. 500,000 going once, twice. Sold. As the attendants sealed the Abyssfang Reaper back into its case, all eyes turned toward the cloaked man. Even the auctioneer regarded him with interest. A mere 500,000 for such a weapon was insanity, unless the buyer was truly worthy of it. But the man said nothing. He simply leaned back into the shadows, as if the outcome had already been decided from the start. Valeries chuckled, shaking her head. That guy's got guts. Asher only smiled. He wasn't sure if the cloaked bidder would be able to control the Abyssfang Reaper, or if the weapon would end up consuming him instead. Either way, it wasn't his problem. The auction moved on. As the bidding frenzy over the Abyssfang Reaper died down, the auctioneer gave a knowing smile. If that last item was a weapon for the body, then this one. He gestured toward the stage, where a new pedestal was brought forward, covered by a cloth of woven silver threads. Is a treasure for the soul. A hush fell over the hall. With a dramatic sweep, the cloth was removed, revealing a small, crimson lotus floating above a bed of spiritual mist. It pulsed gently, each petal shimmering as if made from condensed light. A faint, soothing hum filled the air, and for a brief moment, the weight of exhaustion lifted from everyone present. Even the most battle-hardened cultivators felt their minds clear, their spirits refreshed. Appraiser's analysis. Name: Soul-Forged Lotus. Type: Divine Medicine, Soul Strengthening. Effects: enhances soul resilience and clarity, allowing cultivators to withstand spiritual attacks more easily. Aids in recovering fractured souls or damage from forbidden techniques. Boosts mental focus, improving comprehension of cultivation techniques. Defect: extremely rare, only blooms once every 1,000 years. If consumed improperly, excess energy could cause soul instability. The weight of the item's true value sank into the audience. For most cultivators, strengthening the body was simple, through training, body refinement, or external treasures. But the soul? That was different. Only a few rare materials could refine one's spiritual essence, and the soul-forged lotus was among the most sought after. Even among sect masters, ancient clans, and forbidden cultivators, soul cultivation techniques were scarce. This wasn't just a rare item. It was an opportunity. The auctioneer's voice rang through the chamber. Starting bid, 80,000 high-quality astral stones. Unlike the previous items, there was no hesitation. A noblewoman draped in robes of flowing violet silk raised her hand immediately. 100,000. A tall, gray-haired elder from the Silent Spirit Monastery responded without a pause. 150,000. A sect master in a crimson and gold robe, his aura heavy with divine energy, spoke next. 250,000. The numbers kept rising. 300,000, 450,000, 600,000, and with each increase, the tension grew. This wasn't about wealth anymore, this was a fight for power. Valeries exhaled, watching the battle unfold. Well, she whispered. Are you just going to sit there? Asher smirked. Then, he raised a single hand. 1,500,000. The effect was instant. Silence crashed over the room. Every gaze snapped toward him. The sect master in crimson and gold clenched his jaw. The noblewoman's fingers tightened around her chair. The Silent Spirit Monastery elder furrowed his brows. The bid had doubled in a single instant. It wasn't just about the number, it was the message. Step aside. Some hesitated, calculating their chances. Others looked at Asher with a hint of fear. A minute passed. Then two. But no one spoke. The auctioneer let the silence stretch before raising his hand. 1,500,000 going once, twice. Sold. A final thud of the gavel sealed the deal. As the last item was brought into auction, everyone instinctively looked at it as last 11 items were best than last one. The moment the dark crystal box was placed on the pedestal, the energy within the hall shifted. It was subtle at first, Just a flicker of unease, like someone walking over a forgotten grave, but then it grew heavier. Thick. The air pressed down like an invisible fog, and even seasoned cultivators felt their breath catch. The auctioneer gave a rare pause, visibly bracing himself before speaking. This is not an item to be taken lightly. He gestured, and the protective seals on the box unlocked with a chime. The lid lifted, revealing an ancient scroll suspended within a barrier of soul-forged crystal. The parchment shimmered, not with light, but with time itself. It looked as though it had existed long before any of the guests had ever drawn breath. Its surface was inscribed with an elegant script that shimmered with primordial soul energy. It didn't pulse with power like other techniques. No, this one breathed. It whispered. And those with deep soul senses could hear its call. Appraiser's analysis. Name, Eternal Soul Rebirth Scripture. Type, Soul Cultivation Technique. Effects. Allows one to rebuild the soul after death once, assuming the body can be reformed. Strengthens soul essence with each meditation cycle. Unlocks latent soul-based abilities, including soul echo, thought transmission, and karmic resistance. Defect. Requires a stable soul core to begin. Failure to synchronize properly may lead to spiritual dissociation or permanent memory loss. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. This wasn't just a rare technique. It was a myth. Most sects didn't even believe soul rebirth was real. And yet, here it was. The starting bid was quiet. Almost reverent. Starting bid, 1 million high-quality astral stones. 1.2 million. 1.6. 2 million. The bids climbed faster than the auctioneer could count. Sect elders, alchemists, and soul cultivators, everyone wanted it. Even a few who had sat silent the entire evening began to stir. And still, Asher remained quiet. Valeries raised an eyebrow. You're not seriously going to let this one go too, are you? Asher leaned forward, just a little, fingers steepled under his chin. No, he said quietly. This one is mine. And then, as another bidder shouted, 3.4 million. Asher spoke. 10 million. The room froze. Again. He had done it before. But this was different. The weight in his voice was deeper. A declaration. Not just of wealth, of intent. One of the elders from the Jade Pavilion sect stood up, flustered. T10 million? Preposterous. This is madness. But even as he ranted, he was already sitting down again. No one dared to match it. Asher's words were final. The auctioneer, still composed despite the awe in his eyes, raised his hand. 10 million going once, twice. Sold, to the honored guest. A round of thunderous silence greeted the declaration. And with that, the Eternal Soul Rebirth Scripture vanished into Asher's storage ring. The hall remained eerily quiet as the auctioneer gave his final address. Tonight has been historic, he said, voice steady. Our deepest gratitude to all participants. As per the protocols of the Black Iron Auction House, guests will now be escorted out in scheduled waves to ensure privacy and safety. Only 3 guests were allowed to leave at a time, in 3-minute intervals, each group led by elite guards. It was an age-old policy of the auction house, meant to avoid ambushes, assassinations, and theft after major purchases. The larger the bids, the earlier your slot. Naturally, the first departure was granted to the highest spender. A quiet bell rang. All honor to our esteemed highest buyer, please proceed to the private exit. Asher rose from his seat. He said nothing. Valeries followed, hands casually behind her back, but her eyes swept the room like blades. Everyone watched them. Some with envy. Some with fear. Some with the bitter taste of defeat on their tongues. Asher gave none of them so much as a glance. He had already gained what he wanted. The guards escorted them to a shadowed corridor that led to a high-security teleportation gate, one that would deliver them safely beyond the city's walls. The moment he stepped into the circle, Asher glanced down at his palm. The scripture had settled quietly into Asher's soul space, anchoring itself like a whisper within eternity. It pulsed faintly, harmonizing with the vast and mysterious energies within him. Energy so ancient and boundless that even the Eternal Soul Rebirth Scripture seemed humbled by it. Just then, a voice broke the silence. The items you've bid on are here, said a guard in heavy black armor, his tone respectful, almost cautious. Behind him, several auction house attendants approached, each carrying artifacts wrapped in protective arrays, items from across the auction, venom, bloodline slaves, constructs, and more. Among them stood 9 individuals in finely enchanted shackles, slaves, yes, but each one pulsing with rare bloodline potential. A smaller attendant stepped forward,
holding out a crystal ledger. Please confirm the final payment. Without hesitation, Asher raised a hand. A soft glow gathered in his palm as perfect-grade astral stones materialized from thin air, pure, radiant, and dense with essence far beyond the norm. The guard's eyes widened slightly at the quality, but he quickly bowed. Confirmed. Your payment is accepted. He gestured to a teleportation circle behind him. You may leave through here. As per protocol, your party will be the first to exit. Asher gave a simple nod and stepped forward, his presence like a shadow that pulled gravity with it. Valeries moved just behind him, ever relaxed, ever sharp-eyed. The 9 bloodline slaves followed. The enchantments around them flickered gently, obedience runes and soul-binding marks still active. But even in their worn clothes and bruised states, the power that slumbered in their blood was unmistakable. There were 5 girls and 4 boys, each from different parts of the continent, bearing marks of rare and exotic lineages, some celestial, some draconic, one even abyssal. Their expressions were a mix of fear, awe, and confusion as they looked upon the man who now owned them. After 2 days, Asher and Valeries, along with their 9 new companions, had settled into one of Asher's private estates, a serene but heavily warded manor nestled deep within a hidden pocket realm. The sky above shimmered with eternal twilight, and the air was thick with spiritual energy. A perfect place to begin anew. He created it using his abilities, to have a safe place where they can stay and cultivate until they are powerful enough to leave this place. Inside the grand hall of the estate, Asher sat upon a stone throne at the head of the chamber, Valeries lounging beside him in her usual effortless grace. Before them stood the 9 former slaves, lined up in silence. Their wounds had been treated, and each wore clean robes gifted by the estate's spirit attendants. Still, uncertainty flickered in their eyes. Then, Asher stood. Now, he said, his voice low, steady, and resonant, let's start with something simple. He stepped forward, his presence calm yet undeniably dominant. My name is Asher Magnus, he continued. And this, he gestured to the woman beside him, is Valeries Magnus, my wife. Valeries offered a slight smirk, one leg crossed over the other, her gaze sharp but unreadable. Asher looked each of them in the eye, one by one. We only need one thing from you, loyalty, he said. You were bought not to be used, but to be given a choice. The 9 looked up, startled. You will not be treated as slaves in this house, Asher stated. You may serve as attendants, maids, aides, but only if you choose to. Work with us, grow stronger, earn your place. Or walk away, and I'll send you somewhere safe, far from the reach of those who would exploit your bloodlines. The words hung in the air like a spell-breaking wind. You are free to decide. Then he stepped back, giving them space. No threats. No ultimatums. And that was what shook them the most. Each of the 9 looked at one another, eyes wide with disbelief. Some were trembling. Others held back tears. They had spent their entire lives being hunted, captured, or sold. This kind of offer. It didn't feel real. Then slowly one of the girls, a silver-haired elf with starlight eyes, stepped forward. She began, her voice wavering, I wish to stay. I want to grow stronger, and protect myself. One by one, the others followed. A boy with scaled arms bowed deeply. A girl with crimson irises knelt and whispered thanks. A silent child, perhaps no older than 8, simply nodded and walked to Asher's side. All 9. All of them chose to stay. Asher looked at them with a small, almost imperceptible smile. Then rise, he said. Your lives no longer belong to fate. From this moment on, you forge them yourselves. Valeries gave a light chuckle. You're such a soft tyrant sometimes. Asher shrugged. They'll be useful. And if not, they'll be free. Either way, it's better than chains. Later that evening, after the 9 had settled into their rooms and the estate fell into quiet stillness, Asher made his way to one of the inner chambers, designed specifically for soul cultivation. It was a circular space, inscribed with ancient soul-conducting runes that glowed faintly in shades of deep violet and silver. Sitting cross-legged at the center of the formation was the youngest of the 9, a boy no older than 10. He had jet-black hair, pale skin, and golden eyes that seemed too deep for someone his age. This was the child with the soul heart, the rarest of spiritual anomalies, capable of nurturing and refining the soul far beyond mortal limitations. Asher approached and sat down across from him. You've felt it, haven't you? He asked quietly. The boy nodded. It's like something inside me is always moving, always watching. Asher nodded in return. That's your soul heart. A gift and a curse if left untrained. He extended a hand and channeled a trace of energy. A soft ripple of soul force spread between them, and as it touched the boy, Asher's eternal creation ability activated. Like a divine blacksmith, he peered into the intricate structure of the boy's soul heart, every layer and rhythm laid bare before him. It was magnificent. A perfect crystalline core, pulsing with the potential to cultivate the soul independently from the body and spirit. If nurtured properly, it could create a cultivator whose very thoughts could destroy illusions, manipulate emotions, or obliterate weak-willed enemies.
I see, Asher murmured.
It's incomplete but beautiful. He then retrieved a scroll, one pulsing with mist-like haze script, the ethereal soul art, the very soul cultivation technique he had purchased at the auction. Asher had not needed it for himself. His assimilation technique, refined by the system, was vastly superior. But for the boy, this scripture was perfect. He placed the scroll before the boy. This technique, he explained, was once practiced by soul generals who fought with nothing but the force of their will. It will teach you how to control your soul, how to make it grow, and how to weaponize it. The boy looked up at him, hesitant. Why give this to me? Asher leaned back slightly. Because you remind me of someone I knew long ago, and because you have something worth protecting. You're not just a child anymore, you're a soul cultivator now. I hope he buys this nonsense, Asher inwardly thought as he spouted bullshit. Then, with precise guidance, Asher walked him through the first stage of the ethereal soul art scripture. Threads of energy formed between them as the boy's soul heart resonated with the scripture's techniques. It was slow at first, a flicker here, a pulse there, but before the night ended, the boy had entered the initial phase of soul refinement. And for the first time since his capture, there was something in his gaze besides fear.
Happiness.
Asher rose to his feet, the scripture sealed in the boy's soul space now. When you master it, he said softly, I'll teach you the next part. And when you're ready to fight for yourself, I'll show you what it truly means to shape destiny. He left the chamber, the boy still meditating, his aura slowly beginning to grow. And far away in the manor, Valerie sat in the courtyard, gazing at the stars. He's teaching again, she whispered to herself, smiling faintly. After a moment, Asher returned to her, his steps light as he approached the courtyard where she sat under the moonlight. He lowered himself beside her, and without a word, took her hand in his. How much more do you need? Valerie's asked softly, tilting her head as she looked into his eyes. Asher leaned in, brushing a kiss against her lips before resting his forehead against hers. I'd say I'll need another few days before I can fully analyze and perfectly recreate the soul heart, he murmured. His voice was calm, thoughtful, like a craftsman envisioning his next masterpiece. Valerie smiled. Then I suppose I'll just have to keep you company until you do. He chuckled gently and pulled her closer, their silhouettes merging beneath the quiet stars as a gentle wind passed through the courtyard. From that night onward, every day in the secluded estate took on a rhythm shaped by purpose and quiet devotion. Tucked deep within a hidden pocket world, sealed off from the outside realm by ancient formations and camouflaged with illusion arrays, Asher's estate became more than just a sanctuary. It became a crucible of transformation. In the mornings, as twin suns rose beyond the horizon of this sealed dimension, Kale would enter the soul cultivation chamber barefoot and focused. Waiting for him always was Asher, seated in a lotus posture at the center of the soul formation, surrounded by arcs of violet and silver light. Their lessons began with silence. Asher never rushed the boy. Soul cultivation was not about power, it was about understanding. Sensing. Resonance. Each breath Kale took pulled him deeper into the fabric of his own being, the soul heart pulsing gently within like a hidden lantern guiding him through the dark. Some days, Asher would remain quiet for hours, observing Kale with eyes like still water, using his eternal creation ability to deepen his understanding of the soul heart with every flicker of energy the boy produced. Every minute variation, every resonance pattern, every whisper of spiritual reaction, Asher studied them all. Then he would return to his private scrolls and diagrams, mapping the soul heart with divine precision. Slowly, ever so slowly, a perfect replica began to take shape, not in the physical world, but in Asher's mind. He was getting close. Valerie's, meanwhile, had taken over much of the estate's daily management. The 9 former slaves were no longer hollow-eyed survivors, they now moved with a quiet pride. Dressed in simple but fine garments tailored by Valerie's herself, they took up their new roles not out of obligation, but out of loyalty. She trained them with both kindness and sharp discipline, teaching the girls how to serve with grace, to cook, to care for the spirit flora in the garden, to weave formations into linens and clothes. She taught the boys how to manage the inner formations of the estate, to defend it in an emergency, and to read and write the common tongue. Many of them had never been taught. She even gave them new names, simple ones but chosen with care, so that each of them could leave behind the identities they had been branded with in chains. In the evenings, when the household settled into peace and the sky darkened with twin moons, they all gathered briefly. Sometimes for a shared meal. Other times for soft music or stories Valeries would tell beneath the willow tree in the courtyard. And always, Kale would join last, his eyes still glowing faintly with soul force. He rarely spoke, but when he did, the others listened. For they knew, he was changing. And whatever he was becoming, it was something they all respected. Late at night, once everyone else had gone to rest, Asher would walk the quiet halls, the soul heart's replica forming in fragments within his soul space, almost ready, almost perfect. And Valeries would wait for him in their chamber, or in the starlit courtyard, never asking for more than a moment beside him. It was a strange kind of peace. But it was theirs. And thus, a whole year passed in the serenity of that hidden estate. In that time, both Asher and Valeries achieved something that no one in the outside world could have imagined, the fusion of two impossible realms. Through tireless study, countless hours of teaching, and the unrelenting application of his eternal creation ability, Asher had not only replicated the boy's soul heart, but had perfected it. At the same time, he merged the two. The result was a phenomenon never before seen in this world. The astral soul heart. A core that anchored both the soul and the spirit energies, mana, of the cosmos within one singular vessel. It unified body, soul, and spirit into a seamless triad, enabling cultivation on all three levels simultaneously. He created two of them, giving one to Valeries and one to himself, and with it they were eligible to cultivate in this world too. "These is like my dragon heart is finally alive," Valeries said as she inhaled a deep breath. Asher understood exactly what it meant. When he had acquired the dragon god's bloodline, he hadn't just inherited its power, he had also obtained its core, the dragon heart. This heart was nothing short of miraculous. It was the reason dragons could grow stronger simply by sleeping or eating. Functioning like an autonomous cultivation engine, the dragon heart naturally absorbed mana and refined it within the body without conscious effort. However, its design was specific to dragonkind. It relied heavily on their unique mana and the natural laws of their origin world. That made it incompatible with this realm's cultivation path, until now. With the creation of the astral soul heart, that barrier was shattered. The astral soul heart acted like a universal framework, bridging spirit and soul cultivation into one seamless system. When Asher merged the dragon heart's functions with this new core, something extraordinary happened. The dragon heart began to function again, fully and perfectly, within this new world. The marketplace was alive with sound and color, bustling streets packed with wandering cultivators, traveling merchants, and curious onlookers. Exotic beasts roared in the distance, spirit fruits floated mid-air in display cases, and rare treasures shimmered from beneath enchanted glass. But none of it held the crowd's attention the way two particular figures did. They walked side by side, a presence that made the street part before them, not out of fear, but instinctual awe. He stood tall, draped in flowing robes of midnight silk lined with silver veins, the emblem of a celestial dragon faintly etched across his chest. His hair was stark white, flowing like moonlight, but his most striking feature were his blood-red eyes, glowing faintly with a dangerous, otherworldly light. The very air around him seemed heavier, charged with a quiet pressure, as if reality itself adjusted to make room for him. They called him Young Dragon now, a name whispered with both reverence and fear. She walked beside him, just as radiant in her own right. Her silver-white hair shimmered under the sunlight, cascading down her back like liquid starlight. Her eyes, once a soft violet, now gleamed with an ethereal rainbow hue, ever shifting like a prism kissed by dawn. She carried herself with divine grace, her expression serene yet unshakably powerful. Some had begun to call her the White Phoenix, not merely because of her aura, but because she now bore the unmistakable signature of ethereal beauty to her. The crowd couldn't help but stare. "Who are they?" someone whispered. "You don't know? That's the Young Dragon and the White Phoenix. They're the ones who cleansed this place. Just a few months ago, this region was overrun by bandits and cultists. One by one, they were wiped out. Some say the White Phoenix descended like a comet and burned them from the sky. Now the locals call them heroes, husband and wife, some say divine protectors. But there's more. Did you hear about the merchant lord who tried to buy them off? Offered them a fortune and even insulted the young dragon in public. The next day he was gone, his entire estate reduced to ashes. And no one dares mention his name anymore. All the outposts around here recognize them now. Some say the young dragon inherited the bloodline of an ancient dragon sect, and he's marked this land as his territory. Others claim the White Phoenix isn't just a cultivator, she's a divine being reborn in mortal form. Her beauty alone has turned arrogant heirs into wandering monks. Whatever the truth is, no one wants to test it. The whispers continued, spreading like wildfire through the marketplace. But Asher and Valeries simply walked on, unfazed by the rumors that clung to their presence like mist to the mountains. After spending nearly a year hidden away in their secluded pocket realm, Asher and Valeries finally emerged into the world once more. Their return was quiet, but their presence was anything but subtle. They arrived in a province long ruled by fear, the Everpave Wastes. A lawless region plagued by chaos and ruled by strength alone. Here, the so-called Bandit King held dominion over the scattered factions, his name whispered with fear across dozens of towns. Arrogant, powerful, and mad with delusions of grandeur, he quickly took a dangerous liking to Valeries. He demanded she become his concubine.
It was a mistake. A fatal one.
Valeries didn't even need to lift a finger. Asher acted before the insult finished leaving the man's mouth. The entire throne room, once filled with mercenaries and lieutenants, was reduced to smoldering ash in an instant. Only blackened bones remained of the Bandit King. But that wasn't the end of it. The Bandit King had a brother, Wanter, a self-proclaimed noble who had recently bought his way into the Megath Lord's court. Wanter thought himself clever. Instead of attacking, he offered gold, property, and influence, in exchange for Valeries. He died just as quickly. Now, word had spread. The name of Asher and Valeries had reached the gates of the City of Lords, the capital of this region. Whispers of their power swept through every noble house, from wandering mercenary lords to retired war generals. Cultivators and opportunists began arriving at the city, hoping to witness the couple with their own eyes. Some came seeking alliance. Others came seeking revenge. But all of them brought only one thing into Asher's path, a reason to act. And when Asher acted, they took notice and ended up giving him Young Dragon name. A prideful being who bows to no one. That was how they described him. But there was another strange detail that kept surfacing among the rumors. Despite the way he carried himself, with the calm confidence of a seasoned cultivator, the cold gaze of someone who had seen lifetimes pass, and the sheer presence of a dominator, he looked barely older than a teenager, hence Young was added to his nickname. Though neither Asher nor Valeries cared for the fame or the whispers that followed in their wake, they had spent the last few months simply roaming, wandering from one region to the next like twin storms with no destination, only purpose. They moved as they pleased, unfazed by sex, kingdoms, or self-proclaimed emperors. It had been Valeries' idea, born in a quiet moment beneath moonlight. To see the best this world has to offer, she had said. To reach the peak, not just through cultivation, but through experience. And so they wandered, hand in hand, soul and spirit rising ever higher as they witnessed the marvels and ugliness of the world. Ancient ruins, forbidden forests, shattered battlegrounds and hidden paradises, no place was beyond their reach. Now, once again, they had returned from a journey, their robes dusted with the scent of rare flowers and aura tinged with blood. As they walked from the market, they looked at their mansion. Not just any mansion, the former estate of the city lord. A man who had once ruled with arrogance and lust, who dared to lay greedy eyes upon Valeries. He was now just a memory. One that ended the moment Asher crushed his heart without a flicker of emotion. The mansion was theirs now, rebuilt, repurposed and protected. A haven for the few they cared for, and a base they returned to between adventures. As Asher and Valeries stepped through the grand gates of the mansion, the mood shifted. The faint hum of spiritual arrays guarding the estate activated at their presence, and the heavy obsidian doors, engraved with the emblem of a rising dragon and a phoenix in flight, swung open silently. Inside, the once cold halls were now warm and alive. A gentle scent of incense lingered in the air, mingling with the fragrance of freshly prepared meals. The polished marble floors shimmered under the soft lantern light. And standing respectfully in the main hall were the 9 former slaves, now dressed in fine but simple robes, acting as maids and stewards of the mansion. They had been taken in by Asher and Valeries a year ago, back when the world still whispered their names with uncertainty. Some of them were barely teenagers, others a bit older. All of them bore scars from lives once marked by chains and silence. But now, there was purpose in their eyes, strength, even a hint of pride. The youngest, Kale, the boy with the soul heart, stood straighter than the rest, his aura faintly pulsing with controlled energy. The ethereal soul art had done wonders for him. He bowed respectfully when Asher entered, then grinned faintly. "Welcome back." A chorus of similar greetings followed. Master Asher. Mistress Valeries. Valeries gave them a gentle smile, brushing wind-blown strands of silver hair behind her ear. "We're home," she said softly. The older girl, Mira, stepped forward to take their cloaks. "Shall I prepare the bath? And dinner is nearly ready. We were told you might return today." Asher nodded. "Prepare it. And gather everyone in the inner courtyard afterward. I want to hear what's been happening here,
and we'll tell you what we've seen out there. As you command. Later, after their bath and a quiet meal taken in the serene comfort of their private quarters, Asher and Valeri stepped out beneath the night sky. The inner courtyard was lit by hovering soul lanterns, their flames flickering with a rainbow hue. The 9 gathered there, kneeling respectfully, but no longer with fear, only reverence and curiosity. Kale was the first to speak. Where did you go this time? Valeri smiled, her eyes glinting. The southern mountains. A dragon graveyard hidden beneath the clouds. Dozens of soul remnants, a fallen sect, and a monster born from hatred and bone. She looked to Asher, who raised a brow. It tried to claim my heart, he said, deadpan. So I claimed its skull instead. Kale's eyes widened in awe, while a few of the others gasped. But what was it like? One of the younger girls asked, eyes sparkling. Valeri's knelt beside her, resting a hand on her head. Terrifying. Beautiful. Sad. And powerful. Every place we go is like that, carrying stories long forgotten. This world is old, children. And it's filled with things far beyond your imagination. Asher, still standing, let his gaze sweep across them. Which is why you'll train harder. Eat well. Rest deeply. Because one day, I won't be telling you stories. You'll be out there living them. There was silence at that. A soft, heavy kind of silence, the kind that makes one realize they've just been offered something extraordinary. And then Kale bowed his head. We'll be ready. Asher gave a nod. Valeri smiled. The courtyard slowly emptied after their gathering, the younger ones returning to their duties or studies. Night thickened over the mansion, veiling it in calm, but inside the grand dining hall, a quiet conversation lingered over a late meal. Asher and Valeri sat at the long table, plates of spirit beast meat and fruits before them, though they were more preoccupied with each other's presence than the food. A warm breeze drifted in through the open balcony doors, carrying the scent of night jasmine from the garden. That was when Liam entered. He was one of the older youths among the 9, nearing 17 now. Once a thin, fearful thing barely able to speak above a whisper, he now carried himself with practiced grace and a sharp mind. His clothing was modest but clean, and in his hands, he held a carefully sealed scroll tied with a waxed insignia that shimmered faintly with protective formations. He bowed low. Forgive the interruption, master, mistress. This came by encrypted hawk today. I thought, you'd want to see it immediately. Asher raised a brow and extended a hand. The scroll flew into his palm. From where? He asked, breaking the seal. Liam straightened slightly, eyes sharp behind his calm demeanor. The Jade Concord Sect's outer agents. One of our merchant fronts in the Cloud Mirror Basin intercepted it. It was meant for the Golden Lotus Pavilion, but it circulated farther than intended. Valeri's leaned closer as Asher unrolled the scroll. Her rainbow-hued eyes scanned the delicate calligraphy alongside him. Heaven's rift has opened. A spatial rift of ancient origin has torn open in the skies above the forgotten maze. It is believed to be the mouth of an undiscovered realm, one dormant since the Mythic Age. Entry is unstable but passable. All major sects are mobilizing. Confirmed participants: Azure Sword Sect, Crimson Seal Monastery, the Thunderwing Hall, Pale Moon Pavilion. Even delegations from the Central Empire have been seen. Treasures of unknown rank and lost cultivation arts are suspected to lie within. Estimated duration before closure, 3 months. Entry permitted only by token. Warning: realm shows signs of autonomous will. All who enter must beware. Asher's expression didn't shift, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Valeri's smiled faintly. A realm that chooses who may enter? How poetic. And dangerous, Asher murmured. Realms like this, they're not dead. They dream. Some even hunger. He set the scroll down, fingers drumming once against the table. What do you want to do? Valeri's asked, already knowing the answer. Asher looked up at her, red eyes gleaming. It's another adventure, what else? She laughed softly, then nodded. Then we'll need tokens. Liam stepped forward. I can arrange it. One of our informants says the Crimson Seal Monastery is trading entry tokens for rare spirit crystals or favors. Favors? Valeri's asked, amused. Liam smiled, faint but proud. They're desperate. Even a whisper that you two are interested will shift the balance. Asher leaned back in his chair, his grin razor-thin. Then whisper it. Liam bowed. It will be done. As he turned to leave, Asher glanced down at the scroll one last time. Beware, for the realm possesses will. He smiled. Let's see what kind of will dares to face ours. I am more interested in treasures there, she said as Asher chuckled as they both ate their food while Liam and others arranged for Token. The days that followed were filled with movement, not rushed or chaotic, but the steady momentum of well-oiled preparation. There was no war council, no rallying of armies. Just a quiet understanding between two souls who had long since decided to face the world on their own terms. Asher and Valeries spent their mornings training in silence, refining the flow of their astral soul hearts with calm precision. The afternoons were often spent in the mansion's gardens or open halls, listening as the younger ones, Liam especially, brought updates on the realm, tokens, and the movements of sects. They didn't announce their plans. They didn't need to. Unlike the great sects that treated such realms as battlegrounds for legacy and domination, Asher and Valeries approached this for what it truly was, a journey. A chapter in a story not yet written. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to explore. To discover. To challenge themselves against the unknown not out of pride, but out of curiosity. The day of departure came swiftly. By then, the necessary tokens had been acquired, gracefully bartered through Liam's efforts and the mere implication of the couple's interest. No threats. No bloodshed. The world had begun to understand, you didn't need to fear the young dragon and white phoenix, unless you gave them a reason. Their travel was light. No entourage, no banners. Just the two of them, cloaked in modest robes, walking along a winding path that shimmered faintly with spatial chi, one of the known routes that would lead to the forgotten maze, where the heaven's rift had opened. As they traveled, they passed other cultivators, some in awe, others unaware. But even those who didn't recognize them felt it, the aura that rippled around them like wind over still water. It wasn't oppressive. It wasn't arrogant. It was steady. Unshakable. Are you hoping for a fight? Valeries asked one evening as they made camp beneath a canopy of blue leaf trees. Asher looked up from the fire he'd just lit, his red eyes catching the flame. No. But if one comes, I won't avoid it. She smiled, curling up beside him. I hope we find something unexpected in there. Not just artifacts or techniques, but something strange. Something forgotten. You want a mystery, he said with a small laugh. I want wonder, she replied. That's why we're doing this, isn't it? Not to be feared. Not to be famous. Just to know what's out there. Asher looked to the stars overhead. Yeah, he murmured. To know. The night before their arrival, the sky grew restless. Far ahead, beyond a sea of violet hills and the twisted remnants of ancient battlegrounds, the heaven's rift pulsed with an unnatural glow. Not simply light, it shimmered like a wound in the world, a jagged tear suspended in the air, its edges lined with what looked like falling starlight. And the rift watched. It didn't roar or tremble like many unstable domains. No, it was still, eerily so. As though it was waiting. Sensing. Choosing. By the time Asher and Valeries arrived at the outer edge of the forgotten maze, they were no longer alone. Hundreds of cultivators had gathered. Tents lined the shattered stone paths. Flying ships floated lazily above. Battle auras mingled in the air, tense but contained. This wasn't a battlefield yet, but it could become one at a moment's notice. Representatives from all the great sects had come, dressed in their proud silks and armored robes. Some of them wore masks. Others glared openly, eyes sharp and measuring. They all wanted the same thing, access. Access to a realm lost since the Mythic Age. And yet, even among this sea of power and arrogance, silence fell when Asher and Valeries approached. They didn't walk with guards. They didn't wear sect colors. But the moment their feet touched the carved stone leading toward the rift, space itself seemed to shift. Not violently, but gently, like a door being opened. All eyes turned. Whispers rose like smoke. Is that the young dragon? And the white phoenix? They came after all. But unlike the others who had arrived with bluster and pride, Asher and Valeries simply nodded to the few watching cultivators they recognized and walked past. No intimidation. No challenge. Just presence. The guards from the Thunderwing Hall stepped aside without being asked. The delegation from Crimson Seal offered a respectful nod. Even the aloof elders from the Central Empire's envoy lowered their heads ever so slightly, recognizing not status but weight. Asher looked up at the rift. It shimmered almost in response, and for a moment, its outer edge peeled open just slightly, like it recognized him. Valerie stood beside him, eyes narrowed in subtle thought. It's open now, she said, and Asher nodded. Then, with a flash of their tokens, the two stepped into the realm. Phew, they actually went in, muttered one of the scouts nearby, who had been observing from a hidden perch. Even though Asher and Valeries hadn't tried to show off or release their aura,
The pressure of their presence alone had marked them as anything but ordinary. To seasoned cultivators, their power was unmistakable, at least at the peak of the Saint King realm, if not something beyond. And while they had no intention of making enemies needlessly, everyone knew, if provoked, they could bring ruin with a thought. As much as many hoped to test their strength, most wisely chose not to. They weren't just powerful, they were purposeful. They didn't crush people for fun, but when Asher did release his power, entire sects fell silent. It was best, everyone agreed, to simply stay out of their way. Don't engage them in the secret realm, either, many elders warned their disciples and younger sect members, their voices firm with rare seriousness. They're not like the others. Though Asher and Valeries hadn't declared their strength openly, those with sharp eyes and sharper senses understood, they were dangerous, and not the kind of dangerous that shouted, but the kind that ended things silently. The moment Asher and Valeries stepped through the veil of the heaven's rift, the world around them twisted. The light bent unnaturally, like glass melting in slow motion. The air felt thick with intent, ancient, unknowable, and vast. For a single heartbeat, everything was still. And then, space fractured. Not shattered like a broken mirror, but more like it decided to rearrange itself. Asher's hand, which had been holding Valeries, passed through mist instead of flesh. His surroundings turned from vivid forest glades to a stormlit sky, with floating islands drifting in the distance like pieces of a forgotten dream. Valeries! He called out, calmly but with intent. His voice echoed strangely, as if the realm itself was listening. There was no answer.
She, too, had been pulled elsewhere. Valeries.
She found herself standing atop a sea of crystal flowers, each step causing them to chime softly beneath her feet. The sky here was a muted violet, stars visible even in daylight. It was beautiful but eerie. And it was clear to her instantly. They were separated as they entered inside. This realm has a will of its own, she murmured, recalling the line from the scroll. She closed her eyes, letting her senses stretch far beyond the visible. The threads of fate, of space and soul, whispered faintly. Somewhere out there, far but still reachable, was Asher.
He was safe. For now.
She opened her eyes, now gleaming brighter with divine rainbow light.
Fine, she whispered.
Let's see what game you're playing.
Asher.
High above the ground, Asher stood on a jagged cliff edge overlooking a vast, shifting desert. Towers of sand danced in spirals, and ruins pulsed with old energy in the distance. The wind whispered names he didn't recognize, languages long dead and forgotten. But his stance was relaxed.
Calm. Focused.
They separated us, he said softly, his red eyes scanning the land.
A test? Or a challenge? He didn't mind either.
Across the realm. As heaven's rift closed behind them and the light of the barrier faded, the cultivators quickly realized what had happened. They had all been separated. But there was no panic. They had expected this. From the moment whispers of heaven's rift spoke of a realm with will, the major sects had prepared for the worst. It was known that realms like these often scattered their challengers, testing individuals in isolation, breaking formations and alliances before they could form. So when each disciple found themselves alone, in deserts of cracked glass, forests of whispering bones, sky islands high above the clouds, they didn't scream or flail in fear.
Instead, they moved. Calm. Focused. Trained.
Every one of them reached for the artifacts prepared by their sects, crafted talismans, soul-linked pendants, or directional compasses embedded with tracking arrays. Each tool pulsed with faint spiritual light, scanning the ether for familiar signatures.
Not for comfort. Not for fear.
But to ensure that no solo member of their group was killed before the true trials began. This realm was no arena of alliances, it was a battlefield. Every participant was a competitor. Every encounter could mean a clash of fists, blades, or soul techniques. And if any of their own were to fall before the real opportunities even revealed themselves, it would be a loss the sects would not tolerate. In the distance, faint glows flickered, signs that some sect members had found each other already. Others began converging based on artifact guidance, cautious but swift. Still, some remained separated, hidden by the realm's strange fog, locked in personal trials, or diverted by unknown forces. But none of them truly worried. This was part of the plan. Asher stood in silence, his crimson eyes slowly adjusting to the dim, amber-tinted haze that hung in the air. The ground beneath his boots cracked with each step, smooth blackened stone riddled with thin glowing veins, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The air here was heavy with pressure, like standing beneath the surface of a deep ocean, though he could breathe easily. Above him, the sky was fractured. Shards of clouds suspended like broken glass, glowing faintly with unnatural hues. Lightning danced silently between them, but no thunder ever followed.
Heaven's rift had placed him in a strange domain.
A realm of silence. A forgotten battlefield.
Scorched weapon fragments lay half-buried in the obsidian soil. Towers of bone, some taller than cities, jutted from the land like ancient monuments to a war lost to time. A ruined statue of some long-dead celestial warrior loomed in the distance, its head missing, sword shattered. Asher's gaze swept across it all without alarm. "This place reeks of so much resentment," he muttered.
But he wasn't disturbed.
In fact, he welcomed it. He took a breath, tasting the energy in the air. It wasn't just ambient mana, it was dense, refined, ancient. This was a land that had devoured cultivators for thousands of years, and in doing so, it had matured. A perfect place to grow stronger. He reached into his robes and withdrew a fragment of silvery jade, the artifact tethered to Valeri's. It pulsed once in his palm, steady and clear.
She was alive. She was near. But not too near.
Asher smirked faintly.
"All right then.
Let's see what this realm has to offer before I find you." The deeper Asher walked into the fractured terrain, the more the land seemed to shift around him, not physically but spiritually. He could feel it now. Heaven's rift wasn't just an ancient battleground.
It was a test. A will.
A living realm that watched, waited, and judged. Every step he took stirred remnants of ancient formations buried beneath the surface. Symbols long forgotten flickered beneath his boots, glyphs not tied to any known cultivation path. They weren't hostile, yet they seemed to measure him.
Probing. Evaluating.
Still, he pressed forward, calm and fearless. "If this place truly thinks it can weigh my worth," he murmured, his voice barely above the wind, "it had better be ready for the result." Suddenly, a pressure descended. From above, something crashed into the earth ahead of him, sending a quake through the surrounding terrain. Dust and glowing ash flew into the air as Asher raised a hand, casually waving away the cloud. When the haze settled, a creature stood before him. It was a guardian construct, half beast, half machine, forged from spirit metal and bone, with runes etched deep into its hide. Its 6 eyes glowed crimson, locked on him with undeniable hostility.
A trial. The first of many.
The construct didn't wait. It surged forward with unnatural speed, claws extended and mouth gaping wide with spiritual flame.
Asher didn't flinch. He simply exhaled.
A ripple of soul energy burst from him, and the air bent unnaturally. His foot slid forward, and in that instant, the world seemed to tilt.
Then he moved.
The attack that was meant to rend him apart was already behind him. With a flick of his wrist, the space between him and the creature twisted, and he appeared directly above it. His palm shimmered with overlapping layers of astral, mana, and soul energy, swirling in perfect sync. When it descended, it didn't just strike the construct's body, it struck its will. The guardian shattered without a sound, reduced to fragments of bone and light that dissolved into the ground. Asher landed softly, crimson eyes burning brighter now. "Cute trick," he said quietly to the realm itself. The fragments of the guardian absorbed into the earth, and a sigil rose from the cracked floor, a gateway opening further into the depths.
He knew what it meant.
He had passed the first test.
And many more would come.
But he welcomed them all. Asher stepped through the new path without hesitation. Far away, the jade shard in his robes pulsed again. Valeri's had passed her own trial as well.
He smiled. An hour ago.
Valeri stood at the edge of a dream. The realm she had arrived in was unlike anything she had expected. A valley of crystalline wonder, veiled in soft mist and bioluminescent light. Flowers unlike any mortal species bloomed in silence, each one made entirely of living crystal, their translucent petals shimmering with ever-shifting colors. They pulsed with gentle waves of energy, like heartbeat echoes in the stillness of dawn. Above her, the sky wasn't blue, but a tapestry of stars locked in twilight, as though night and day were forever entwined. Strange constellations turned slowly overhead, distant and watching. The air smelled faintly of lotus and soulgrass, yet it carried something deeper, a whisper.
Not words. Not warnings. A calling.
Valeri stepped forward, her bare feet brushing over soft, luminous moss that glowed with each touch. Her white-silver hair flowed behind her like moonlight in water, and her rainbow eyes took in everything with serene clarity. The crystalline grove, some ancient part of her whispered. Not from memory, but from instinct. This was no mere environment. It was a realm within the realm, a fragment of an ancient being's soul or dream, preserved through epochs. The flowers weren't just beautiful. They were alive, watching, listening, testing. She reached out to one. The moment her fingers neared its petal, it flared with blinding light, and the entire grove responded in kind. A wave of resonant tone, not sound, but emotion made music, rippled through the field. The flowers began to sing,
each tone tuning to a different frequency of soul.
And then, she heard it.
Her own melody. But fractured. Imperfect. Valeria's eyes softened.
This is the trial, she realized.
To pass here wasn't to fight or destroy.
It was to harmonize.
The grove wanted resonance. It wanted the one who touched it to find herself, to align every part of soul, heart, and spirit until she became a perfect note in the symphony. Without hesitation, Valerie sat. She closed her eyes beneath the star-woven sky, and her aura began to hum, soft at first, but rising with quiet power. Petal by petal, the flowers changed color, attuning to her soul signature. Her thoughts, her regrets, her joys, all spilled forth, not as memories, but as light, dancing through the grove in ethereal threads. The illusion of control faded.
There was no pretense here. Only truth. She wept once, not from sorrow, but because of the beauty of it. A kind of cleansing.
The final step of release.
And then, she sang.
Not with her voice, but with her essence. A radiant burst of soul energy expanded from her, pure and harmonious, echoing with every crystal bloom. The grove answered, erupting in a radiant bloom of color that lit up the sky itself.
Above her, the stars aligned.
A glyph rose from the center of the grove, inscribed in runes made from soul light. The flowers bowed, actually bowed, as she stood, her form now wrapped in faint trails of stardust.
She had passed.
Not by force, but by understanding. The grove parted, revealing a path of floating petals leading deeper into the rift. And far away, the shard at her side pulsed once with warmth.
Asher.
I am coming too, better not have much fun without me, she mumbled as she walked towards the deeper layer. Asher, on the other side of the realm, could feel it. Valeria's was moving deeper. Her presence pulsed softly through their shared bond, a gentle warmth guiding him through the chaos of the unfamiliar land.
He didn't hesitate.
According to the map they had obtained before entering, Heaven's Rift was divided into several layers: the outer, inner, core, and finally, a hidden realm, a place that could only be accessed after passing the trials and tests of the previous zones. Each layer was said to become exponentially more dangerous and more rewarding. Currently, both Asher and Valeries had cleared the outer trials, and were now seeking passage into the inner layer. From where he stood on a jagged black cliff, the expanse of the rift stretched endlessly before him. A world fragmented into floating landmasses, drifting rivers of starlight, and spiraling towers of ancient ruins. The inner zone, even visible from this distance, felt impossibly far. In Asher's eyes, sharpened by countless layers of soul perception, it looked like a distant speck, as if an ant tried to glimpse the moon. He exhaled once, calm and measured. Then, with a flicker of divine intent, a pair of magnificent white wings unfolded from his back, elegant, ethereal, and crackling faintly with the power of his astral soul heart. Each beat of the wings stirred the air around him like ripples in still water. His crimson eyes narrowed, locking on to the shimmering veil of the inner zone far ahead. With one sharp flap, he soared into the air, cutting through the sky like a comet.